and inspect the blockage. He found construction debris, cleaned it out that was causing the blockage. Nick explained the situation and told that they would have to come back to the yard and change out trucks. Nick came back and was able to clear the clean out and main sewer line. After clearing the line, Nick changed vehicles again, returning to my residence to run the camera down the clean out and show me that the piece of concrete that was causing the issue. Nick was unsure who was responsible for the repair, but he gave me the contact information for Chris Wright. The following day, I spoke to Chris. He discussed the issue with the clean out and informed me that this has happened before. And with the newer homes being built, Chris worked with the builder and the plumbing company to help resolve the issue. The main sewer line clogged again during the week. Nick returned and cleaned out the clean out and the main sewer line from the street. The builder had the issue repaired during the week. Chris called me later on in the week to follow up and make sure that the issue was resolved properly. I expressed my concerns with Chris about more construction debris in the main sewer line after the repair. He sent Nick back out to clear the clean out and the main sewer line. The issue has now been resolved and everything is back to normal. I wanted to share my experience and to formally thank both Nick and Chris for their help during this crazy mess of mine. I would like to see these two gentlemen recognized for their hard work and their dedication to their jobs, the city and the citizens they serve. They went above and beyond to make sure that this was taken care of. I'm unsure if the city has a way to formally recognize, but please take the time to thank them for all they do. This is one of the reasons I call Cibolo home. Thank you, Raymond Montanez.
Thank you, Councilman Gibbs. Thank you. Mr. Err, would you please, I know I've seen the email traffic, but please pass on. Next, we have Ms. Maggie Titterington.
Good evening, Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening. Well, I am very pleased to say we are starting back to having our in-person luncheons. It will be next week. Today was the last day to RSVP, and very much looking forward to seeing some of you all. I'm sorry? Oh. Next week, it is our nonprofit luncheon. We have 18 of the area's local nonprofits that will be present and just trying to get out their information and support, as well as our leadership core graduation class. I can't believe it's already time for that graduation, already time for new businesses to step forward and be a part of next year's, which I'm really hoping we're going to be able to fully do. We had to cancel our capital trip as well as our Randolph Air Force Base one due to COVID, but I'm just very hopeful we'll be able to resume our normal activities next year. Also next week, very busy week, is our mixer. We will be doing that by Zoom though, and this is Brooks of Cibolo. They are our host. And I was speaking with Ashley. She's very excited. They're very close to getting their C of O. And she says currently right now, their assisted living is at 50% and their memory care is at 30 and their independent living is at 30. And they're hoping to open the independent living by October of this year. But she's just very excited. The support, the interest, all the people coming. I just think this is really going to be something awesome for Cibolo. And then last but not least, we have our Caterpillar Chamber Bowl that is going to be next Friday, and we have 75 persons in the corporate session, 65 in the lunar, and this is, of course, taking the place of our Golf Classic, and it raises funds and scholarships for DECA for both Clemens and Steele High Schools. Very excited that there's going to be a Steele team as well as a Clemens team that will be playing as well that evening, and so we know we are limited on capacity, but Fiesta Lanes in New Braunfels has been awesome working with us. Taking all the precautions, masks, sanitized balls, gloves, even something in their HVAC that sanitizes the air at least twice a day. So we're very, very confident that with the social distancing, this is just going to be a very, very successful event. We're hoping to raise a lot of money to give them. Really last, we are doing a shred day. It's October 17th, and it is only for the cities of Cibolo, Selma, and Schertz. We're going to be hosting it at the Chamber in Schertz in the parking lot. It's October 17th from 9 to 12, and it's in partnership with the Better Business Bureau. So I'll have more details as we get closer, maps of how we're going to do it, how we're going to route it, but you can have up to 5 boxes or the 13-gallon trash bags of papers that you need shredded. I know that Schertz had to cancel theirs. I don't know if you, I believe you all Yeah, okay, Peggy said no. So yes, all the people that are within the sound of my voice in Cibolo, Schertz, and Selma will be having that October 17th. We'll get more information out, so bring your stuff and we'll shred it for you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Next, we have a letter from Ms. Spencer. Peggy?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City staff. I watched a town hall meeting that was held on July 22nd, 2020, and it was a bit disappointed as a citizen of Cibolo. I wonder why the town hall meeting is not used in the same manner as how most others use them, which is for citizens to get to know their representatives better, to voice their concerns, or to be able to ask specific questions regarding ongoing projects in the community. I was interested in knowing how many actually watched the town hall meeting, and I have been informed that 4 watched via Zoom and 27 watched live streamed on the city's website. With all that is going on in our city, our county, our state, our nation, these numbers are pitiful. We have so many people in our city and so little citizens participation. At the last council meeting, Councilman Hicks was practically begging citizens to volunteer for the UDC Commission. I know in the past some districts have really struggled with getting any volunteers. Do any of you wonder why, or do you try to think of ways to get more citizens to participate in our city? It is stated by many scholars that citizens' involvement in governance is what helps build accountability and responsibility for both the officials and the citizens. Another element deemed critical is to have citizens involved with different points of view to challenge one another and to work toward a common goal. This brings me to a question: why does the majority of the current council say citizens who have a different view are negative instead of taking time to listen to a point of view that is different from theirs? Personally, I feel this is an issue in our city that needs to be addressed. I would like to suggest a subcommittee of 3 council members who do not all think alike, work on strategies to increase citizens' participation, which could create more diversity, increase numbers of volunteers for commissions, and make our city even a better place to live. She also would like to know that her council member has refused to read or accept her emails, and it seems that council members should represent all of his or her constituents, as that is what the city charter says is their responsibility. Thank you for your time, and to voice my concern respectfully, Cindy Spencer.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons.
Hey, Mayor, I'd like to make a comment for the record. As you know, and the rest of the council knows, Ms. Spencer is in a lawsuit against myself, yourself, Mr. Allen, and Mr. Hicks. And we've been advised by council to have as little conversation with the individuals that are suing us in the city as they go through this litigation process. So as for advice from the attorney, that is why she is not getting any responses from me. So there are other council members that are not involved in this lawsuit that she's more than welcome to reach out to, and she can reach out to the city staff as well. And she has that to her avail. But that is why she's not getting any responses from me, is because we've been asked to limit that conversation with them.
Thank you for clearing that, finding that, Councilman Quinn. I have a similar situation that I'm dealing with that, so. Item number 6, we have a very special presentation tonight. We have the Gary Kelly Award, and at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our city secretary, Ms. Simmons.
Okay, I'd like to read a little bit about Gary Kelly for a lot of people that may not even know who Gary Kelly was, and I'd like to just give a brief bio on Gary Kelly. Gary Kelly was born in October 1948 in New York. He joined the Air Force after earning his degree from Syracuse University of Forestry. He served in the Air Force for 28 years, retiring as a colonel. Colonel Kelly's last assignment in the military brought him to the Cibolo area, where he purchased a home. Both Gary and his wife loved Cibolo and knew that this would be their forever home. The Gary Kelly Community Service Award is awarded every year to an individual who has demonstrated exemplary volunteer service to the Cibolo community. This award is to honor the memory of Gary Kelly a Cibolo resident who served on several commissions, committees, boards, and city council. Gary Kelly was a city council member from May 7, 2005 to October 15, 2006, when he passed away at the age of 58. Gary Kelly had attended a city council meeting that evening, and as an avid runner, went home and took his evening run. Later that evening, he had a massive heart attack. Gary Kelly dedicated many hours to the city with one goal in mind: make a positive difference. Through his selfless dedication, Gary Kelly did just that. He helped make Cibolo a better place to live. He helped to make Cibolo a city of choice. This year, we had 5 nominees for the Gary Kelly Award. Each of these nominees have dedicated many hours to the city, and they all have made a positive difference in this community. It was a very tough decision, but the selection board did come up with the winner of the Gary Kelly 2019 award. The selection board is not made up of city council or city staff. This award is chosen by a panel of 3 of the previous Gary Kelly Award winners. The previous award winners are Tex Farnsworth in 2010. He was the very first Gary Kelly Award winner. Robert Catalano, Dick Hetzel, Garth Corson, Barbara Schmittenbauer, Steve Liparato, Stosh Boyle, Eric Moraes, and 2018 winner Leslie Peedy. And this year, our winner will be announced by the mayor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Simmons. And from what I understand, we had a very tough decision to make, or they had a very tough decision to make. Some great contestants. So we really appreciate, and every single one of them was worthy of the award. However, this year we'd like to recognize Mr. Melvin Hicks to the 2019 Gary Kelly Service Award. Mr. Hicks, are you in the back still? Would you come on up? I would say probably long overdue, Mr. Hicks. Thank you very much. We appreciate your service.
Joe, you want to take a picture with your dad? Sure. Oh, don't leave yet.
And we know you're never short for words, Mr. Hicks, so it's all yours. You got more than 3 minutes.
I want to thank you. I appreciate. This is beyond anything I can imagine. I don't think there's anything greater than serving your community. And so anybody out there watching this, serve your community, volunteer. We got openings. Volunteer and serve your community. And just like everyone here, you're serving your community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Mr. Herr, before we turn it over to staff updates, I'd like to, 2 things. So first of all, we are going to have more than 10 people in the room, so I'd like to go ahead and confirm that. Is that I believe we'll have up to 15 at any given time. And, oh, I'm sorry, I'll hit that next. But also, before we start on the staff updates as well, the presence of our police force today was very much appreciated. There was a gentleman that passed away, and Dennis Janik and his wife Nancy Joe is a member of the Cibolo Citizens on Patrol, very dedicated member, and it was very heartwarming to see all the presence that we had from both the police officers and several of the police staff and whatnot. So it was very touching. I appreciate that sentiment. Number 7 on the consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes of the regular city council meeting held on July 28th, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve item number 7 as written.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll turn it over to you, Mr. H, the staff.
Thank you, Mayor and
updates.
City Council. I'd like to ask Rudy Klein, our Director of Planning and Engineering, to address the City Council tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I believe in your package you received a report scheduled for the month of July. Building permits, that's what we usually submit to at the beginning of the month. I'll just kind of go through them briefly with you. New home starts for the month of July were 36. What's not on this agenda, not on this list though, is that we issued 34 certificates of occupancy for residential in the month of July. As you can see, the trend it kind of slowed down a bit during the spring. It's starting to pick up. We anticipate it being pretty high this next month. Miscellaneous permits include all other permits, residential related, anything from water heaters to decks. And then health permits or food permits. And you'll see that they tend to be bulked up there in September. We used to only issue permits in September, and then they were for a year, but based on the fiscal year, now we just issue them anytime during the year, and they're good for 12 months. So in time they'll trend out. The next page on commercial permits, this was a very flat month for us. We had no new commercial permits issued, no finish outs or tenant finish outs or commercial alterations, and no C of Os for home-based occupancy. So no C of Os commercial development this month. I think we're going to have a few more next month, but it seems like commercial development has slowed down a bit through the summer, perhaps because of the COVID. The last chart is the code enforcement violations. 36 violations were noted and issued citations this past month in July. Of those, about 30% or 12 were related to tall grass and weeds nuisance violations, and 10 of those were under Ordinance 563, had to do with objects in the street. Mostly it's a basketball court set up in the public streets. And then I'd like to also note that, thank you, Mr. Quinn. A couple of meetings ago, you'd mentioned something about San Marcos. I took a look at what San Marcos had on their permit. We talked about permitting and how to make permitting process easier. We looked at that, and under Mr. Herrera's direction, we had a meeting with staff to see what we can do to help make the permit process, at least the information, more smooth and easier to access. As a result, I think Mr. Herrera will probably be later on in the year, a few months from now, we'll be describing more of these as we're trying these new things out. But you will notice that on our city website now, we do have a permit center tab, and that will link straight to the building inspections and permitting. We're still playing with that part of it to again, try to make it as user-friendly as possible, answer the questions up front. And then the other thing between our department and economic development, we're going to enhance we already have a customer service survey that goes out to the design professional, but working with economic development, we'll also have a customer service survey that will talk to or get information, feedback from the owners of the businesses, the owners and the occupants of the businesses. With that, I have any, ask if you have any questions. No? That completes my report.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Klein.
Mr. Klein.
Mayor, before you move to the next agenda item, I want to thank Rudy and his staff and Kelsey McVeigh. I had an opportunity to visit with them about some of the challenges that the city council shared with me about getting a permit through the process in the city of Cibolo. Well, we try to always provide the best service, and when we don't, we try to enhance on it. So thank you for those comments, and I'll address the council sometime in the near future about some of the things that we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. We have a question from Mr. Allen.
It's not for Rudy. I just wanted to say, Mr. H, that I appreciate the Cibolo Police Department for buying that gentleman a bike that worked at Walmart, had his bike stolen, and a couple officers chipped in and bought him a new bike. So he has a way to get to work. So I just want to commend your officers.
Item 9, we have the discussion action on the removal, appointment, and reappointment in the various committees, boards, and commissions. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to all the volunteers that have applied. We have a pretty healthy stack here of applicants. I can't really see who's all in attendance in the back. I know starting off with Mr. Mathis. Would you come up, Jamie? And you have your application in for the Unified Development Code, number 1, Charter Review, 2, and Economic Development 3. Tell us a little bit about yourself again and why you want to be on the committees.
All right. My name is Jamie Mathis. I've been in Cibolo for roughly about 16 years now. I've served in various different capacities, various different areas over the years since I've been here. I've been on the UDC with Mr. Hicks as well as Mr. Walliver in past, along with some of the members of the UDC today. And I just found it very interesting to learn what we're dealing with as a city and as we continue to grow and be able to work with one another and come up with the easiest solutions, not only for citizens, but for business owners as well. And really what we want our city to look like, feel like, act like, and be able to use those codes, not just as an enforcement tool, but as a learning tool and be able to guide other homeowners or business owners going forward and be able to understand that. That's why I have a passion for the UDC. As far as the EDC, I've been in business for all my life, I guess, for the last 25 years, self-employed. So I know a thing or two about as far as economic development growth and how to go about it in the right way in a manner that will bring success to the city. That's the reason I would like to be on the EDC as well. And then I believe I also put on the application that the CIP I would be interested in, or I feel that I could contribute with that. With my business knowledge, I know where we can at least have conversations as to what is in the budget and why we are putting something in the budget and what exactly is the timeline they're wanting to achieve certain things and being able to help guide those timelines and fulfill, what the city master plan is all about. That's me.
Very good. We got any questions for Mr. Mathis? Yes, sir.
So, you've been on the UDC before. What you've looked at thus far, because it's almost done. Probably should have had it done by now, but there's a few more things that we wanted to take a look at. So, it's only going to be there for short duration, at least to get this one finished. What are your thoughts on it? What's missing? What's good?
Well, I'll tell you, so after the previous council meeting where people were calling out people to volunteer for the UDC, I spoke with a couple of people about being on the UDC. I wasn't aware until, to be honest with you, today that the UDC was as far along as they were. How I was to understand it is that a lot of meetings got postponed or delayed or didn't happen because of the COVID situation. And that now was a good time, not that in the beginning it was not a good time, but that there were still people that needed to fill the positions with the UDC. And as of the conversation I had earlier today, there should still be a handful of meetings left. So anything I can do to contribute to the UDC, I feel that I can contribute. I mean, if it's already over, then obviously not. But there's a little bit of conflicting information, so I still wanted to be here to apply for it.
But yeah, it's not over. I mean, it's getting close. And I got to ask you, have you been able to repair? I know you might have some fractured relationships with some city staff. You've been vocal. I mean, that's
Yep.
fine about that. So my concern is your relationships with some of the city staff. Is it at a point now where you would be able to work with them?
I haven't had any trouble with city staff in a couple of years. I mean, we've had minor disagreements that we come to an agreement on over email or something of that nature, but nothing where I'm vocally speaking out at city council or anything of that nature.
Okay, so, all right, well.
I mean, the last time that I was asked that same question, myself and Mr. Herrera and Mr. Klein sat down that same week and worked out the differences that the three of us had, and we were able to put that behind us pretty quickly. And that was probably over a year and a half ago.
Is there still something in the UDC that is not, because the question I asked was, had you gone back and looked at it at all, even prior?
I look at the UDC probably every 60 days, trying to look up something.
So what are those things that work, the state it's in right now? What is it that you don't?
Well,
like
I'm not
about
a
or
part of
what's
the,
good about it?
I'm not a part of the negotiations that you guys are going through right now, because I'm not on the UDC. So I don't know what you're asking. I mean, if you're asking about the existing UDC,
Yes.
yes, there needs to be changes, but again, it's a combination of everybody talking about those changes. If those changes have already been agreed to, there's no reason to hash that back out. So I just want to see whatever stage the UDC is in, if there's anything I can add to it, I want to add value to that. If there's not, then, I mean, that's fine as well.
Oh, as far as the UDC, one of the items that they're going to be looking at is improving our building standards for fences. What are your thoughts on that, on beefing up the standards so we have some quality fencing here in Cibolo?
Were you talking about residential or commercial or both, or?
Mainly residential, but it could bleed over into commercial.
I truly believe that we need to look at all things involved. When we're talking about residential, we need to talk about what are the distances that we're already asking for those homes to be apart, or are they, right up on top of one another? I think that plays a role in the size of the fence or the height of the fence. I think it also depends on whether you're talking about a new development that you're wanting to approve for a particular housing and what the citizens are asking for in that particular area or what they're asking for in the future. I know that that's changed every year as far as, what the opinion of our citizens are and what they're calling for or asking for. Some years it's been 6-foot fences, some years it's been 10-foot fences, 8-year fences. So that conversation is ongoing. I believe that all fencing needs to be, look good and be sturdy and last over time. But in all reality, you can't make the perfect fence all the time. So I definitely believe that it needs to be unified as far as that development. And I think we need to work closer with P&Z and kind of looking at what they're talking about for their PUD and everything else they're wanting to get out of that, and then follow along those same guidelines.
Yeah, for the most part, I'm just looking to increase the depth that these posts are required to be dug, and then also the cement around it. That way they don't, just fill it up with dirt and put an inch of cement on the top. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
I think that goes back to when the UDC talks, because there's a cost effectiveness at some point that also needs to be understood. So if we're asking to go from 4 foot of depth to 12 foot of depth, I'm not for that because of the sheer cost that is involved with that. But if we're talking about the engineers would come out and actually specifically say, hey, with an extra 6 inches of depth, I can assure you that you're going to get another 2 or 3 years out of these posts. I think that's a conversation worth having.
Thank you.
Councilman Hicks?
Mr. Mathis, I know we've got it on the agenda to discuss tonight about ethics. It's just one of those questions. We'll have a video for you to watch. I know that you've taken the other courses. You had to have taken the other 2 one-hour courses to be able to be on any committee. Since you have been on a committee before, you've taken those. You can't just go out and blurt out what you want. You got to think about it before you come out and say it.
I understand.
Okay. Just you're representing not just your business, but you're representing the city of Cibolo. So whenever you're on a board and then you go off to the left, we,
I understand.
we don't, okay. Thank you, sir. And I don't know if
Any more
she's going to
questions?
ask her question.
Any questions for Mr. Mathis?
I wasn't going to ask it, but I'll ask it. If you get put on a commission, you understand that attending the meetings is vital. Do you feel that you have the time in your schedule to be able to attend the meetings?
Absolutely.
Okay.
With that, Mr. Mathis, we appreciate you answering the call and once again stepping up to serve our community. So thank you very
Thank y'all.
much.
Have a good day.
Next, we have Mr. Frias. Another familiar face.
Good afternoon.
And John, you got, you're applying for your re-up on your planning and zoning board, and you have Board of Adjustments on here as well, which we have a vacancy. Is it something that would interest you as well?
So I'm already on the Board of Adjustment.
I knew that, so that's,
But anything else that you're needing, UDC, CIP, I'm willing to also step up and help. Kind of just recapping the past 2 years on the P&Z, I learned a lot. I mean, at the very beginning, I didn't even know what an ETJ was. I've been in Cibolo for 3 years, and I've done everything I can to help the community, not only in my subdivision of Turning Stone by getting on the HOA board, but talking to other HOAs when topics come up that affect our district, and making sure that they can communicate with not only me, Mark Allen, but we do get that feel. We do have that pulse on our district and other constituents within the city. When topics do come up, they bring it to our attention. Hey, these are concerns. Duly noted. Got it. My track record from what I've been following is that anything that I vote on P&Z, either with the P&Z commission or not, council usually ends up voting that same way. So I clearly see y'all's agenda of where y'all want to move the city forward, and I'm trying to do my best as well to adhere to that on the P&Z. Going forward, the future of what I got going on. In my line of work, I work for Builders First Source. I sell building products. So I watch the commodities report. I know the lumber market. Mark, when you're talking about fences, right now pickets are, you can't find any. 3.5-inch pickets, you have to go to Arkansas to go get them. They're out. Right now we're seeing an all-time 5-year high in the lumber market. So the builders are absorbing that cost, so is the end user. But you know, one thing that I've taken notice is when y'all talk about issues, pit pads, the market rate of land, and you know, people in Cibolo not being able to, you know, that work in Cibolo, live in Cibolo. Those are issues that I take notice, and because I'm in the building industry, you know, I try to, you know, solve problems. So I do have a project in the ETJ, and I'm currently trying to get everything to the point where I present it to the city as a development master plan that can accommodate the single parent, that can accommodate the teachers, the people that work in Cibolo. They could actually afford to live in Cibolo. The AW Texas employees, they're gonna need a place to live as well. But it also solves the pit pads. You know, Air Force men, they go in and out. So if I can provide an option, diversifying the city's portfolio, myself, my own money, and my connections, I am willing to contribute. And I don't believe that's a conflict of interest because I have in the past recused myself multiple times from the P&Z when the Brooks of Cibolo had issues or brought up to discussion. I did some business with them as well prior to even me being appointed P&Z. So I was a part of that project, and as it came up, I just recused myself, no conflict of interest. I have briefed my corporate attorneys, you know, what I'm doing, so they're fully aware. They just want to make sure I recuse myself at any point in time that I may deem a conflict of interest. And I also do consult with Peggy every single time an agenda comes up, and I do consult with her to make sure that I'm within regulations. So that's what I got going on. And as always, I'm willing to serve and help out wherever I can.
Yes, sir, Councilman Hicks.
John, I've watched you over the past couple of years. You've done a good job up there. You vote your conscience, and that's what we like to see, you know, not so much what council wants, but as long as you're voting, your conscience is to the citizens. That's what we want, is citizens that have their own mind, that, you know, think outside the box, to bring that to, the commissions and committees, to give your input, and you do that every time. You know, you have a question, you bring it up, you say, hey, well, what about this? And I really, appreciate that. Remind me of me whenever I was on planning and zoning. I'd always bring up stuff and ask, hey, well, what about this? You know, have y'all looked at it this way? So, yeah, I think you're a good fit in there. I'm glad that you brought up that, you know, you've got issues, or not issues, but projects coming up that, you know, that it's good to know that, you know when to recuse yourself from that. So thank you for what you've been doing and your volunteering.
Councilman Quinn?
Yeah, I actually have some concerns, especially with you coming up here and briefing a project that you might be involved with and stuff like that.
Full
So,
disclosure.
that this definitely wasn't the time or place to brief any type of project for affordable housing or anything like that. But I do have some possible issues with you and the relationships that you might have with developers. Recusing yourself means that you need to recuse yourself from all conversation. So, and I know there's been some times where you've had some conversation on the P&Z, and you've vouched for developers and things of that nature. So if you're in business with any developer, or trying to get a developer here, or trying to have, you know, whatever it is, that means all conversations, good or bad, you need to recuse yourself from. You can't talk good about them. You can't say, hey, look, I support this guy, or whatever the case might be. This is a good person, everything along that lines, because just the perception of improprieties happen, right? And you know just as well as I do how that is, being in the military. So if I know that I can get your word that you'll recuse yourself anytime you're working with the developer, and you don't make any comments about that developer or anything along that lines, and you.
There hasn't been a developer that I've done any business with.
I mean,
in the city yet,
I've listened to some of the P&Zs, and there was one where you had made some comments, and I think it's up near Turning Stone or whatever the case
So we're
might
talking
be.
about the Perry Blanton development, if that's what you're referring to. He is in our district, and I do consult with my constituents about that development. And as you know, apartments aren't really favored in our area. That's been approached multiple times. So when his development came, and I did talk to a few people within my neighborhood, that was really welcomed because that would protect our housing interest. So I did not talk to him personally. In the past, when he was a part of the HOA of Turning Stone, I had dealings with him, but that's it. Other than that, I have no contracts or sales or anything along those lines with him. So, I mean, other than that, he's just in my district.
I just need the assurance that you will
And
definitely
my
step
track
yourself
record
up.
speaks for itself, so.
Mr. Allen?
Well, I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Frias, for the 2 years that you've been on P&Z so far. I think you've been doing a fantastic job. And all the items that, that come to P&Z, I think that you look at it not just from a citizen's perspective, but also from somebody who's in that industry, who understands the costs that developers have whenever they put together a project.
Right.
And what it's going to take to make a project profitable versus unprofitable. And so I think that you have the unique insight, in addition to just a common citizen on the P&Z, as to what it's going to take to get these projects off the ground, and what it's going to take to make them successful.
Right, yeah, I mean, my daily work is looking at architectural, structural plans, civil drawings. That is every day. I don't know anybody else on P&Z that does that every day. So, I mean, that's my line of work. And anybody that I deal with in passing that are going to go develop other areas, I always bring up, why not Cibolo? Why aren't you coming to look at Cibolo? And in the past, y'all know, Nedra Capital came by and took a very strong look at Cibolo. It ended up not working out due to the certain land features and whatnot, but I'm always talking about come to Cibolo, promoting Cibolo in any way I can, even if it's with hotel developers or whatever the case may be. But when the time comes, recusing is the first thing I'm going to do at any time.
And there's no question that, I mean, that you speak for Cibolo, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I really believe that you do, and you care about Cibolo and stuff like that. We got to avoid the perception, right?
I totally
Because eyes are on us, and I
Yeah,
just
and
want to
I'm
avoid
at
that.
full transparency.
I got
So
you,
if
John.
anything, I'm open and honest about everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think you're
And
doing a
if you
fantastic
guys
job.
think that for whatever reason, my development's gonna have any, I guess, sway or favoritism, trust me, my emails and phone calls aren't getting returned, just like all the other developers. So I'm not getting any special treatments whatsoever, so.
Councilman Willover?
Thanks. So, Mr. Frias, well, first of all, thank you, because I know you, I mean, as soon as you came, Cibolo, I remember meeting you a couple years ago, and you've jumped right into it. I like the thinking you put into the comments. It doesn't matter if I agree with them or not, just your thoughts. That's what I like. And maybe that's I don't know if it's your upbringing, the military background, but looking at this is what a standard is, and this is what we've got to follow. I'm trying to follow that and keep the emotion out of it, and I really do appreciate that. You mentioned that you still work for Builders One Source, and you mentioned the word consulting. So is that compensated?
No,
Consulting
it's
work?
not consulting. No, absolutely not.
Oh, okay, so because it dovetails off what Councilman Quinn was talking about, and you've been completely upfront. I mean, here at the
Yeah.
podium, you've laid all these things out. So there's obviously no hiding of that. And you know, with the ethics ordinance, it's going to come up later again, and it's not so much about what's right from wrong. It's about, you know, the appearance of
Correct.
impropriety, and doesn't want to look like, you know, John Frias is making money off of this through the consulting, whether it be
Yeah,
the
no.
venture folks or anybody else.
No.
That's why I asked the
In that
question
role,
about
I just take a
compensation.
citizen's role, and just say, hey, why not Cibolo? And then at that point, yeah, they ask me, who do I need to talk to? And then at that point, I direct them to the people accordingly, and I just step out of the whole deal. And they do ask questions, infrastructure, you know, traffic counts, stuff like that. And the EDC, Kelsey and Mark Love, they were huge helps, just getting them the information. And that's all I am, is just the facilitator, just information to get it to the right people so that we can grow commercial, that we can grow the hotels industry that we need. I mean, we have a hotel tax, we're not even using it. So there's a lot of those issues that y'all bring up that I try to find solutions to help with the people that I know. And if the word's not getting out, you know, who do I need to get it to so that we can make things happen? I mean, Netra Capital, if everything was to go well, that was $100+ million investment into the city, which would have been great for us. But, you know, the Corps of Engineers have another plan for that area, and so be it. But, you know, I try. So any chance I get, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for your honesty.
Mr. Frias, I appreciate the job you're doing on P&Z. I've watched you and really appreciate your efforts there.
Thank you, sir.
Would you be willing to serve also on the UDC to get us
Yes,
over the
sir.
hump?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Also, too, you know, in respects to Green Valley, you know, infrastructure is a problem. That is one of my concerns, and that's why I ran for Green Valley for both years. This year, over this past weekend, because now I'm a quote-unquote developer, I am not allowed to run for Green Valley this year. But I've recruited, along with other help, 6 other people. So 6 other people we have packets for that are going to be turning in applications that live in Cibolo, that are volunteering to step up and help guide, you know, our infrastructure the right way so that we can grow our city our way. So hopefully we'll see how that turns out. But they look to me and Nick Sherman for assistance on there, and we're helping them along the way. So anything I can do.
Councilman Hicks, you had a?
Can you make the meetings?
I can make the meeting.
All right, so I'd like to say, Mr. Frias, yeah, I've watched you, and you know, it's, you know, anytime Cibolo calls, you answer, and we really appreciate that. Your love and your commitment to the city shines through every time. And I really appreciate and respect the job that you're doing, and I'm proud to call you a fellow citizen here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, are we done on Interviews?
Actually, I don't know. To be honest, I can't tell who's in the lobby, so I don't know. Okay, so the other applicants, is there a Reggie Brown? I didn't see Mitzi Delgado. Reggie Brown. There was Mr. Doty, General Doty. And so, yeah, we're open for nominations.
I was going to ask, with the advisement of the council, if we can take a quick executive session to discuss personnel matter for appointments. Do I need to mention by name?
No, I don't care which person.
Oh, I'm sorry. For UDC. If I have to say by
That's a gray area.
I know the question is geared to the legal team, but this question has come up in the past, and it's my memory, based on conversations that I've had with the city council and Mr. Garza, that the only applicants that you can take into an executive session would be the EDC and the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay.
Because of the authority that they have.
Correct. They have legislative authority.
Okay, fair enough. In the meantime, though, what I would like to do before we have any other discussions, Ms. Peggy, if you would please go over the UDC, each committee is a little bit different about how it's made up and by district and all that. And I did chat with Ms. Peggy via email today. I was trying to get a heads up on, what's on the roster versus who's still on and who's off. And I didn't realize, for example, Ms. Petey was not able to be the EDC rep anymore. So, there's a certain composition that is it'd be fair to say in the charter. I know it's in the one write-up. Is that a fair way to word it, Ms. Peggy? So make sure we're sticking with what's in the charter, line out, you go through to make sure we have, the two folks that are supposed to be from the P&Z. We're supposed to have one, for example, from the EDC. In the past, we asked for those commissions to recommend to us who it was they wanted to come. And then in the past, it was supposed to be 3 at large if you want to, because the way it's originally worded, it's in the charter, it's got streets and drainage. Well, we don't have streets and drainage, so the current wording is it's bumped up to 4, if you want to call it at large, that we appoint. That could be all from one district, different districts. There's no per district total. So I just wanted to make sure we all had the same info, the same ground truth, and that's what I was hoping was to be able to talk about, if there were folks, to make sure we were not talking bad, if we're talking bad about them, but if they're, to avoid having people all from one district. Let's say there were, 4 people from one district, 1 from another, and you're trying to, divvy that up. That was partially where I was going with that, so we didn't have to air dirty laundry.
Where a person's district is, I don't know if that would be airing dirty laundry, but from what you're saying, I still don't think I can think of an exception right now.
Okay.
And that's for the UDC, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Because some of the others are a little more straightforward. It's, it's per district and it's who gets nominated and are recommended and then approved.
Okay.
I see it right now, you've got 3 people, well, no, only 2 now, because JC's no longer on the team, so. Even if you were to appoint those 2 gentlemen out there today to the UDC, other than you'd have 5 people from District 5, Judy Parker, she's no longer on it. So. I'm waiting for her. So.
Yes.
Yeah, she's no longer.
She's no longer.
What you basically have is 2 from 5 and 1 from 6, or 2 from 6.
We still need an EDC.
Which keep in mind now, we only had 4 members of the EDC here not too long ago, so.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if this was all made into a nice, perfect puzzle, but we don't have that.
I think we afford Mrs. Schultz the opportunity to find somebody from her
Yes, right.
As long as we get four, I'm working on 2 applications, but just that, for whatever reason, things
Well,
go away, they
but
didn't do
if-
it this time. But I'm
That's my
working
thing,
on
is we only have 4 people right now, so if one don't make it, then we don't have a quorum. So we need to appoint a couple. And that's
For the UDC.
yeah, but I
Or not, I'm talking about EDC.
Right.
I'm talking about EDC.
Okay. So we have 2 applicants here. Is there, and I'm open up for nominations.
Yeah, I'd like to make an appointment for the Planning and Zoning Commission to reappoint John Frias, and also to reappoint John Frias to the Zoning Board of
We'll do
Adjustment.
one at a time. Councilman Allen, I'm sorry. So we have a motion on the floor for the reappointment of Mr. Frias to the Planning and Zoning. We'll do roll call. We'll start with Councilman Quinn. Councilman Hicks.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Mr. Frias. Go ahead, Mr. Councilman Allen.
And I'd also like to reappoint John Frias to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Okay, so we, gotcha.
I'd like to
Okay,
appoint John Frias.
CIP.
For the UDC.
UDC, okay.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilman Hicks, second by Councilman Gibbs. We'll start with Councilman Woolver.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Mr. Frias.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Mathis for UDC.
I'll second that.
We'll start with you, Councilman Quinn.
Aye.
Councilman.
Aye.
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 Congratulations, Mr. Mathis.
And then I'd also like to nominate him for the alternate position on P and Z.
Do we have a second? Okay.
I'll second it.
And we'll start with Councilman Woolver.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Carries. Congratulations, Mr. Mathis. Thank you to all the volunteers that have stepped up and put your applications in. And also, I'd like to remind our council, please put a call into some of the applicants that are not here tonight but have an application in. We still have some vacancies. So with that, we're going to move on. Item 9B, the discussion action regarding the preliminary acceptance of the public infrastructure for Foxbrook subdivision units 3 and 4. Ms. Gonzalez and Mr. Klein.
Evening again, Mayor and Council. So this is the preliminary acceptance of public infrastructure for Foxbrook residential subdivision units 3 and 4. They were designed, approved plat-wise, and constructed simultaneously. The engineering firm is Civil Engineering Consultants. The contractor was D&T Construction. The owner is 2015 Foxbrook Land Development, Inc. It's comprised of 34.732 acres, 93 single-family residential lots, 4 greenbelt lots, 1 open space lot, 4 drainage easement lots, and 1 access easement lot. This falls in Council District Number 5. The Mylar for these units was recorded in June 18th, 2020. A preliminary acceptance walkthrough was conducted by the engineer, the city staff, and the developer and the contractor. A list of deficiencies was noted and given to the contractor to fix, and they have been satisfactorily completed. The improvements include 3,617 linear feet of sanitary sewer pipe with a value of $366,726. Drainage improvements with a value of $376,336.48. Public streets include 3,715 linear feet with a valuation of $719,900. $943. Total value of improvements dedicated to the city of Cibolo is $1,463,005.48. Total valuation of public improvements dedicated to the Green Valley SUD, the water system, is $244,420. City engineer recommends approval of the applicant's request for preliminary acceptance on these phases 3 and 4 of the Foxbrook subdivision.
Mr. Klein, I had a question on this. This is the property that had the easement issue? Is it correct with down Dean Road? Is this the same property or am I missing?
No, sir, this is up off 1103, just north of Turning Stone. This is the development north.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And Rudy, is this
Gotcha.
connecting to our public trail system?
This development will, and part of it's going to start with this unit 3-4, but the rest will be picked up in unit 5, which will be on the other side.
But it's in their plan and they've got
Yes,
it
sir.
laid out
Yes,
for the
sir.
sidewalks?
It'll be connecting to the Turning Stone, so the hike and bike trail that's in the Turning Stone development will link up and tie to this one as well. Eventually, this development, Foxbrook, with unit 5, will head up and link to the 3 acres that we purchased it, not directly, because there's one more piece of property between this and Warbler Woods, but it'll get us that much closer to that Warbler Woods 3 acres that we recently purchased off Dean Road.
So it won't make a direct connection, but there is just one more missing link, right, to get us through all the way?
Yes, sir. There's one more property between Foxbrook and the Warbler Woods.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Councilman Hicks.
So y'all have walked this, correct?
I personally did not, but Mr. Foose and his staff, as well as the engineer for the development, CEC, and the contractor DNT, and I believe a representative from the development also.
Okay, you know, the reason why I'm asking is to make sure that we go over it pretty much, because this is just preliminary, but once we take and do the final, we need to make sure that their sidewalks aren't starting to move. And do you have an idea of when they'll have these? What I'm getting at is, what notes did they say that they're going to have to fix before we can bring it for the final acceptance?
So they cannot request final acceptance within 1 year of your granting preliminary acceptance. Preliminary acceptance says everything is good, complies with our rules, our codes. Now you can start building in this development. Now you can start pulling building permits and building homes in this development. So that's when a lot of the sidewalks are built. The sidewalks are actually built by the home builders, not by the developer. So you're going to see pieces of sidewalk being built as the
homes get sold, correct?
But now they can come back within 1 year and request final acceptance. And they may not have 50% of the homes built by that time. In these days, the way things are going so fast, it's likely that a good percentage of the development will have been built out. So final acceptance is granted to the developer and his contractor, but he has to also put up a 1-year warranty bond beyond that final acceptance.
Okay, you know the reason why I'm asking,
Yes, sir.
because I don't want to see what happened up there at Cibolo Valley Ranch and over at Cibolo Vista, where, we accepted it and then, within a year and a half, they start fluctuating because of the drought, and this would be a good year since we've got a serious drought going on right now, to see how it flexes, to make sure that, I just don't want the city to accept it and then, down the road, we're having to go back and fix something that the builders should have been making sure that they were putting together correctly. So, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
More questions for Mr. Klein? Motion?
I'd like to make a motion for preliminary acceptance of public infrastructure for Foxbrook subdivision, units 3 and 4.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Klein, discussion action regarding the preliminary acceptance of public infrastructure for Sydney Cove and Sydney Cove 2.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is preliminary acceptance for the public infrastructure for Sydney Cove and Sydney Cove 2. It's two developments, two developments adjacent to each other on Weil Road, just to the east of Bright Lane. It is zoned for duplexes, two-family units. The developer is JHFS Holdings. The engineer is Moeller and Associates. The contractor was Fisher Construction. The two units are 7.35 and 5.8 acres, consisting of 17 and 12 residential lots, a total of 29 residential lots. And again, these are two-family lots. The development falls in Council District 7. So the Mylars have been recorded. They were recorded on June the 18th, 2020. A preliminary acceptance walkthrough is conducted by the developer, contractor, and city staff. All punch list items deficiencies were documented and have been addressed, with the exception of one item. There was an issue during construction of silt. Can we scroll back down to the to the photo, the shot at the top? So that's the two units. There was an issue as Sydney Cove 2 is being built with silt fences not being maintained during construction. We had several heavy rainstorm events during the winter and spring, and some of the silt ran off across the road and onto the property across the road. There is a detention pond, a channel and a detention pond that was built on the property to the south. It was built by Meritage Homes and is still owned by, or not, should be maintained by Meritage Homes. The homeowner downstream called us on a couple of occasions. We went out, we photographed, we noted, we stopped work at least 2 different times for the contractor to get silt fences up. The downstream owner has been very patient. We're trying to get the developer to go in and do some mediation on the site, remove some of the silt that washed off his property. He and the homeowner, the property owner, have met in the last 3 weeks. I believe Mr. Scanio, the developer, is waiting on a list of or a direction from the homeowner or the landowner on what needs to be mediated. So we make a recommendation of approval of the preliminary acceptance of this development with the condition that that no certificate of occupancy will be issued for any structure, residential structure in this development until the landowner downstream has been made whole or has his the silt has been cleaned up on his property. The sanitary and sewer improvements. So we've got the 2 units. We have 751 and 398 linear feet of sewer pipe was installed for the city of Cibolo. $84,595 in unit 1, $45,280 in unit 2. Drainage improvements included $49,947 worth of work in unit 1, $37,425 in unit 2. Public street improvements, $227,166 in unit 1, $166, $762.80 in unit 2. Total valuation dedicated to the city in unit 1 was $361,708. In unit 2 is $249,467.80. The water will be dedicated to the Green Valley Special Utility District, a value of $261,950 for unit 1 and $142,352 in unit 2. Again, the city engineer recommends approval to the applicant's request for preliminary acceptance of Sydney Cove and Sydney Cove 2, with the one condition that before any certificate of occupancy is granted, given on any residential structure in the property, that the mitigation of the silt cleanup will be completed across the road on the Bullen property. Yes, sir.
We had some questions, Councilman Quinn.
Is there a reason why they can't get this, the silt deposits taken care of before we approve this preliminary acceptance? I mean,
My understanding, Mr. Scanio has met with the family and the Bullen family, and is just waiting for them to produce a list or a statement of what exactly they want cleaned up.
I mean, but wouldn't it be fair to say that we should make them do that before we give them an acceptance? Wouldn't, I mean, at the end of the day, we should say, not give them an acceptance with the condition, but no, you need to fix this and then we'll give you the acceptance. I mean, to me, that just seems like good business.
That's a product.
So you could, but in this particular case, by withholding a certificate of occupancy, you hold back the ability for them to make any future sales of a home that gets built. And so that's a financial penalty to them.
So I mean, what's the benefit of them getting this acceptance? What does it allow them?
Well, I think you have two people with interested parties now, the developer and the home builder. It's two separate entities that have a vested interest in getting it cleaned up, whereas as opposed to the home builder walking away from this project and then the builder.
Well, there you go. I mean, now we got two interested parties to make sure that this gets done instead of giving them, hey, get it done, and it's left on somebody else's shoulder. So, I mean, I would venture to say that I would not want to approve this particular preliminary approval until they fix the problem.
29 homes, 29 duplexes, duplex units. Yes, sir.
Is this the same developer who owns both of these lots?
Yes. The developer is, yes, sir, it's Scan.
Okay, I'm just curious why they're doing it this way and not having, because both of these only have one entrance in and out. And if you connected the two instead of doing the two cul-de-sacs, made it a big U.
Well, there's a drainage channel that runs, they did look at.
They were looking at
tying the two together.
And having it be just one loop all the way around. However, because of the drainage,
This particular
they would
unit
have to build a bridge.
Yeah.
This plat was already approved prior to them purchasing the other property. And they did look at connecting the two with a bridge, but there's a pretty good channel that runs between the two developments. And there's a lift station. This serves the Cibolo Vistas development.
Yeah, I have concerns about only one way in and out on both of these.
Well, it depends on how many homes, Mr. Allen. So if there's only so many homes, they're allowed to do it with one entrance. Unlike Lantana, that was long before we made some changes that.
That's a very valid concern, though. Yeah.
So they can start pouring slabs, they just can't sell a home?
Correct, yes, sir.
I make a motion to postpone until they get this figured out.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. We'll start with Councilman Quinn.
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0
So that was a postponement
to
or
postpone
denial?
it until they get the
Postpone it
situation.
until, have them bring it back.
You've tabled it until they.
No, table it, and you table it and you have to bring it back that same, this is postponement until they can bring it back to us.
Very good.
According to, not the Roberts rules, but the rules, yeah. You have to postpone instead of say table. Table it, you have to bring it back that same meeting, so.
You can table it to you just have to tell them exactly when it's coming back. But the motion's been made.
Okay. Thank you.
So we're good? Okay, discussion and update on the Country Lane Union Pacific project. Mr. Klein.
I've got, there's one more.
Oh, I'm sorry. The discussion action on the final acceptance of the public infrastructure for Foxbrook Unit 2.
This is the final acceptance for Unit 2. This is the one that's just to the east of 3-4 that was just approved for preliminary acceptance. The developer is 2015 Foxbrook Land Development. The engineer is Civil Engineering Consultants. The contractor was Yantis Construction, comprised of 12.785 acres, 43 single-family residential lots, 3 green belt lots, and it falls in Council District 5. The Mylar for this development was recorded June 6, 2018. Preliminary acceptance was granted in April of 2018. Final acceptance walkthrough was conducted and a punch list items deficiencies that were documented have been addressed. Developer requests final acceptance. This development includes 2,597 linear feet of sanitary sewer pipe for the value of $128,228. Drainage improvements to $106,454. 1,933 linear feet of new public street for $269,058.14 for a total valuation accepted public improvements dedicated to the city of Cibolo, $503,740.14. Total value of water line improvements for the Green Valley SUD, $652,313.24. City engineer recommends approval to the applicant's request for final acceptance in Unit 2 within the Foxbrook subdivision.
Did they do anything to bring gas lines in, or was that the gas company?
Gas company.
Okay, so there's no dedication for that for us. Okay.
Again, we've gone through and looked at everything. I don't want to accept something and,
Yes,
but
sir.
they've got a 1-year bond on it, you
They
said?
have a 1-year warranty bond. After final acceptance, they have to maintain a 1-year warranty bond.
Oh, so they have to maintain it. So if something comes up, okay.
Yes, sir.
They have a different contractor on this one as
Yes, sir.
opposed to the other one.
Yes, sir. This was
Kinda weird.
Yantis, and I think the previous was D&T.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Weird.
All right. Well, if no questions, I'll go ahead and make a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Motion's been made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Klein. Now on to the update on the Union Pacific Country Lane 78 intersection.
Okay, thank you. Chris, can you look on the item, and there's a drawing on, there we go. Can you scroll up just a bit, please? So a few weeks ago, Mr. Hicks brought together a group of people, including staff, TxDOT and the UPRR, Union Pacific Railroad Company, and the mayor and the D.R. Horton Development to talk about the extension of Country Lane on the north side of the railroad tracks. Oh, I'm sorry, the county as well. Commissioner Wolverton was here to extend Country Lane from this present crossing west along the north side of the railroad tracks through the D.R. Horton property and then cross the railroad tracks across from Hakerville Road. Chris, can you scroll up a little bit more? And up, I need to see there you go. And then slide a little bit to the right. Oh, I'm sorry, that's drawing 2. There should be drawing 1. Okay. There we go. Thank you. And now slide it a little bit to the right, please. And can you zoom in 1 click, please? Can I control that from here? No. I'm sorry. Can I use the mouse? May I use the mouse? Work from here? There we go. Okay. So the proposal was to go from Country Lane. How can I slide it this way? No. Right here. Where? Right there. Okay, thanks. There we go. Okay. So we're going to take Country Lane from the current crossing west along the north side of the railroad tracks to Hakerville Road, bringing the crossing right to Hakerville Road. How do I zoom in?
So it's going to turn and go down the railroad tracks?
It'll
No,
cross the
it's
railroad
gonna
tracks
stay
right across from Hakerville right here. This is Hakerville Road. This is FM 78, the railroad tracks.
I'm trying to figure out where it's going from, where it crosses now to where you're going to cross it.
Okay, it's crossing right here. That's Country Lane crossing right here. This is Val's Park, Mobile Home Park.
Right.
And that's where all the access is going to happen.
Yes, sir. So
You're
let me back
gonna go
up.
from there down the railroad tracks to Hackett.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Along on the north side of the tracks. and we have to make a wide curve so the trucks can make the turn there. And then we would approach TxDOT.
So y'all block off Country Road then, right?
Country lane
Yeah,
at the
Country
railroad
Lane would
tracks,
be-
it'll be,
If you
Right.
block off a barrier there or something, so nobody can go.
yes, it,
Gotcha.
So we would close this crossing here. This is the current Country Lane crossing, and we'd swing the pavement this way along the railroad tracks westward, parallel to the tracks, and then curve around and cross the railroad tracks and tie into FM 78 across from Hankerville Road. So what this would involve would be TxDOT restriping some of the intersection and installing a traffic signal system. There'd be a crossing arms on the railroad right-of-way and a grade crossing. And then this would be a road, we would propose a 60-foot wide dedication of right-of-way through the D.R. Horton property. This is, again, the D.R. Horton property, the Steel Creek. This line here represents the backside of the unit that's platted right now, or to be platted. So this is all open space. And I'll mention some issues about that in just a minute. And then we'd also be cutting through Val's Park here. There's a storage facility right here that we would pass through. The building would have to be relocated, and perhaps some of that building as well. We'd have to acquire the right-of-way from Val's here. D.R. Horton at the meeting indicated they would be willing to donate the 60-foot right-of-way across the property. And then we have to work with railroad company on the grade crossing. They would actually construct it, put in the arms, and then TxDOT would work with us on the intersection of traffic signals. One of the issues is floodplain. All of this is in the 100-year floodplain. So we would have to build up the road. D.R. Horton has already prepared a CLOMAR to reduce the floodplain out of this boundary here. This would be out of the floodplain, so they've basically pinched it back into this area. It's already in this area now, but they're going to build up to keep it out of the homes. So we'd have to amend that CLOMAR to get the road out of the floodplain.
and
So
right
this
there
is-
where a lot of that is there's a tree line. As you can see, that dark green, that's a tree line.
Yes, sir.
Is the majority of that. And what I was looking for, guys, is, our council, is, we keep talking about a thoroughfare, and I know that Town Creek, or Turning Stone, because their concern, we're talking with D.R. Horton, their concern is, the floodplain, but I know that over there in Turning Stone, they've got an access to one side to the other that has floodgates, and that's what I was proposing, that, that way we'd have an access, and you'd turn down right there by the Steele High School, and you could eventually make a thoroughfare, 1103, and it'd take you all out the way out to 10 as well, so.
And,
Real quick, go ahead.
okay. And would the homeowner, the future homeowners here in Still Creek, would D.R. Horton be willing to put a little road into this? That way the homeowners can come straight to this road and hop on Hackerville and.
We
That's
discussed
why I
that.
just
go to town.
We discussed that, and they have some roundabouts, so you wouldn't have a straight, fast shot through, so that would kind of deter, like a main drag. But yeah, maybe relocating some of the housing there so we can cut into a street. And maybe the swap is, we have and this goes off into another dimension, but right now, the future thoroughfare plan, the toll road cuts on some of the property off on the east side of the property. So if that line goes away over there, then, they could give up more on the west side of the property to accommodate an access point for this.
Nice.
So what's something like this gonna cost?
They're working on that right now. And I'm sure Mr. Klein's going to get to that.
And then how is the responsibility shared on it, right? So are we gonna be, what's that?
Yeah, I'm sure, with that directive we had last meeting, that got the ball
The
rolling.
county's already proposed to help us with Country Lane.
Okay.
And that's why I went to the county commissioner and asked him, because they're already looking at helping us fix Country Lane
Yeah.
from the low water crossing there by Tolly Road and all the way up. And he said, well, maybe if you do that, then, we can help with that. So it's one of those.
And for the record, yeah, Councilman Wolverton, I mean,
Or no, Commissioner.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Wolverton, he wanted to do this before we had our last accident, so he's
Well,
been.
I agree. But, and then lastly, I guess, my biggest thing is with Union Pacific, right? Because obviously,
They're willing because there's already a crossover there. As you can see, there's already a crossover. They're willing to, because that way they can shut down one.
okay.
They said this has risen on their priority list tremendously.
Okay, so it's, okay. And that was my question.
But I'll let
Where's it
Mr.
at on the
Klein
priority
finish
list?
with his.
So this is what we call option one. The other options we looked at, I'll go to the next sheet. Option two was, as the mayor pointed out, we have on our thoroughfare map right now, we call it the FM 1103 extension to I-10 route that goes from Wild Road and 1103 through the Steel Creek and then down across the property next to the Twinter property, across this piece of property to the railroad tracks, and then it flies. This is where the toll road or whatever future road goes in here proposed to be a flyover the railroad tracks in 78 and continue on. This option would be to go ahead and purchase this piece of property now, build a 36-foot wide paved road or 30-foot wide paved road, 36 at the intersections, and go ahead and tie into Country Lane here, drop down, cross the railroad tracks, and tie into FM 78. We'd have to construct the D-cell XL lane on 78. This may or may not warrant a traffic signal. That would be a text dot call. Again, the objective is to get the trucks over the crossing, not to if we're going to eliminate the crossing the Country Lane, it'd be to get the large trucks across safely. But if we could tie in here, and then eventually in the future, if we wanted to go and extend this up to the Lance Crossing, which is the road that Steel Creek is going to build from Knights Crossing across to Tolly Road, we could tie in there, the city could tie in there as well and continue this connection, and then tie it back up through the Steel Creek development. So this is what we call option two.
And the problem with that one is we're having to go over two sets of railroad tracks. And a lot of times that's one of those tracks are being used to let other trains go by. So if you've got a track sitting there, then that road is closed. So you have no access to any of these individuals on this side of the track. And that's the problem with this one.
And I'm sure it's going to be a lot more.
And with,
Yeah, if I recall, is this the flyover that was going to be upwards of $20 million to construct?
If it was a flyover, and this option's not proposing flyover right now, this option's is talking about doing a grade crossing here, just making use of a future right-of-way to be acquired now, and then have an at grade crossing here at 78. Later on, when the city develops the flyover, whether it be TxDOT, the developer, or whomever, this land would already be there, and a flyover could be continued on across.
And I think you hit the, you said the word, this is going to be purchased as compared to donated from DR Horton, right? So, I mean.
Well, this piece right here is purchased. That is 1.1.
Do we already own that?
I'm sorry?
Do we already own that?
No, but it's.
That's what I'm saying. We'd have to buy it.
Well, you would have to valves also on the other route. You have to
Some of
buy
that,
valves
yeah.
and relocate some buildings.
Okay.
So, and then option three would be the extension of Tolly Road. If we brought Tolly Road straight on along the property lines here, and then make a at grade crossing perpendicular to the tracks and tie into 78. And as Mr. Hicks pointed out, in the last one, the same issue, it's a double track. I don't think Union Pacific's gonna let us do that. Also,
that, and
we
then a
have
lot of that's in floodplain.
Floodplain, yes, sir. So that would require floodplain crossing as well.
Mr. Klein, with the, pardon my interruption, the transportation or road impact fees that we have, if this would be in any of these options, would those dollars be applicable here per, well, I can't remember the local government code 395, whatever you think I'd be able to remember by now, but this would be new road, i.e. an improvement, new roadway facility. Technically, those fees would be eligible to use in these potential projects?
If the project was identified in the capital improvements.
Well, yes, and
So
I
we'd
would
have
say
to go
that
back
would
and-
require
yes,
it being
yes.
added in.
With the exception of any work on the TxDOT right of way. So any work on the TxDOT right of way, with the exception of signalization, we cannot use impact fees for it. We can use impact fees for signalization on the state roads, but that's all.
And does that extend then for right of way that is the railroad right of way? Does that same rule apply?
I can't find anywhere that says we can't use impact fee money on the railroad right of way. I know that the railroad company is going to want to design and build anything and everything that's in their right of way. They'll do the design work. We'll touch on that here in a minute. But I don't see why we can't. I don't know that we can or cannot use those monies on UPRR. The only one I know of is the state roads. We can't use the money on impact fee money.
I guess my, I don't know if I would say caution, just my comment would be, we've got a list of CIP and just the roadway projects already that are already important. This would have to be another one. If you wanted to be able to apply the road impact fees to it, would have to be added to the CIP and then ordered. So it's a trade space. It's something that's already on the list and a projected timeframe of when it might happen in the next 5 years. This would be one more thing.
And to be fair about that, Councilman Wolver, it's already on the list as the country lane.
Country lane's already on there.
It would be an enhancement.
But that would be country lane just extended to where it's a safer spot, so. But
yes.
country lane's already on there.
So after our meeting the other day with the railroad company and county, Mr. Foose, and we were talking about the double tracks and looking at this intersection in a little more detail, what can be done now. And Mr. Foose had a recommendation I think might be worth, I put on the drawing here to bring up, so we did not discuss this the other day. And that is actually taking the crossing, the existing crossing is just off the page here, but that would be just to bring the road, turn it sooner than the existing crossing, come perpendicular to the tracks, raise the road up. We're still right at the frog. The frog is approximately 50 feet from the edge of pavement for the tracks. And then we would, again, tie into the FM 78 at that point. That would require much less right-of-way purchase, much shorter piece of road work too. But it would get the road to where the problem with the intersection right now is that FM 1103 and the country lane surfaces are lower than the rails on the tracks. And so as a truck approaches it, it's got to go up and then back down and over. If you look at the intersection of FM 1103 and the railroad and 78 and the intersection of 3009 and the 3009 and 78, again, 78 is lower than the tracks, the rails of the tracks. However, the north side of 1103 and 3009, as they approach the tracks, are at a higher elevation and a flatter grade, making it much more easy to negotiate the track crossings. So in any case, the goal would be, regardless of where you go down Hickoryville Road, this option 4 or option 2 would be to bring Country Lane up about 18 inches so that we can pick up the grade and cross the tracks at a higher elevation and then drop down onto 78.
Rudy, the one that's on the screen right now, is this an alternative to the round design? You know, where Mr. Hicks was saying that the trucks could get around?
This one right here?
Or is this at a different spot?
This is just a different spot. So this would allow trucks to turn and then just make a slight turn onto Country Lane. And as they come back, they just approach the crossing. And we would leave the road open here for valves, for the entrance to valves. It was just another option. It looked like it would be a lot less cost. it would really be, mostly be the work in the railroad right of way and a limited amount of work here and tying on the south side of Country Lane.
Okay.
So at
So
the
Mayor and
meet-
Council, let me kind of help a little bit, Rudy. We're not asking the council for direction tonight. Councilman Hicks had indicated, it'd be nice to keep the regular council members up to speed or the full council members up to speed. What I think is going to happen next is now that we have four options, the four options will be visited with the Union Pacific Railroad consultant that they're going to use. They're going to put together a design of what could work and what won't work. And they'll also give us a cost estimate for each of the four options. And at that time, we need to come back and talk to the council to see if any of those options are viable. At this point, we simply do not have hard figures on it. We do know that, it could be expensive, but for us to talk out of school right now would not be appropriate.
I would love to see, when we come back with the cost, the pros and cons in a matrix form so we can compare straight line across. That'd be very helpful.
Any more questions for Mr. Klein?
Thank you, Rudy, for bringing
Thank
this
you, Council.
back.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, sir.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to bring back reopen rather, oh, crud. Sorry.
Item which?
Item 9. Oh, my Lord, it's the one for my eyes aren't training, on 9A. I'm so sorry, I was trying to find that. There was 2, finish out the appointments. There's 2 advisory roles from council for UDC that need to be decided.
There's what?
I make a motion to reopen 9A to discuss the 2 city council advisory roles to the UDC.
Motion's been made to reopen item 9A.
I'll second his motion.
All in favor? We'll start with Councilman Quinn.
Nay.
Aye.
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 Nay.
Aye.
Floor is
Okay,
yours.
well, the reason that brought this back up, if you go back into our charter, section 2-251, for Unified Development Committee, there's a line in there, 2 duly elected city council members shall be appointed to serve as ad hoc members. Said ad hoc members may participate in the discussions of the Unified Development Code Committee, but shall not vote. So that's the reason I brought it up, so we can finish out the people that need to be on there. There was no funky monkey business that was intended. So with that in mind, I would ask consideration. I've been on UDC before to be one of those 2 people, which there's still one other, or there's 2, period, whomever they are. There's 2 people from.
Well, let's vote on it. Do you make that in the form of a motion?
I nominate Councilman Woolever to serve as a council person representing the UDC.
I'll
Second that, I'll make a motion to.
We got one on the floor, so motion's been made by Councilman Gibbs, second by Councilman Hicks. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilman Hicks.
Make a motion to appoint Councilman Steve Quinn to that same board.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilman Hicks, second by Councilman Gibbs. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there any other on that? Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
All right. With that, we're at item 9F. Discussion update on economic development activities, Ms. Lee. Everybody's favorite part.
Right there. All right, good evening, everyone. Is this close enough where you can hear? Hopefully, perfect. All right, thank you so much for giving me a few minutes to address you tonight. I was asked to provide a couple of updates. So 2 things I'm going to talk about are the response from staff regarding COVID-19 and the initiatives we've been doing to try to assist our business community during this period. And then number 2, as you can see right there, I'll cover that in a second, is going to be a few updates on Cibolo Crossing. So to begin, I think it was the mayor who said it a couple council meetings ago, business retention is obviously at the forefront of all of our minds. We want to make sure that we're there to assist our businesses that have made the commitment to Cibolo, and we want to make sure that we're showing our commitment to them to help them during these unprecedented times. Within your packet, I included a timeline that broke down some of the major activities that staff was undertaking. I am not going to go through every single item on that list. I know you're certainly all able to read, but there were a few things I wanted to pull out that some people might not be aware of that we've been doing these last few months. So a few things. One is that staff has assisted other departments in the production of 3 videos. 2 that were highlighting the mayor's message to the citizens during this period, and another one with Walmart showing the new safety enhancements that they were doing, trying to, 1, give peace of mind to our citizens, but number 2, also maybe act as an example of what other businesses could enact for safety in this. We've also tried to be as proactive as possible in sharing information with our businesses. Some of the programs and information we've shared have been like the SBA Disaster Assistance Program, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, the Paycheck Protection Program, Goldman Sachs and Lyft Fund, the $50 million loan program for small businesses, the Lowe's LISC Partnership Grant Opportunity, the SBA Business Journal, the BBVA Grant Opportunity, and Heartbeat of Main Street Grant Program. That's in addition to information on occupancy guidelines and just generally answering questions from our businesses as they arise. During the height of the situation, staff published a list of businesses on our website and social media that will have maybe amended hours or amended services through pickup or curbside activities. And we also maintained a listing of businesses that had been deemed essential per the CISA guidelines. Back when everyone was trying to figure out what was open, what wasn't, what could stay open, things like that. Chris, if you want to, it's actually the next document, if you want to go along with that one. Staff also created free flyers that we disseminated to our businesses to use if they wanted to just help remind customers to wear masks and follow CDC guidelines. And we also conducted 2 surveys during this period. One that was an impact survey for businesses to provide direct feedback about what issues they were facing due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And then a more recent one at the end of July, trying to gauge the need of Cibolo businesses to acquire PPE and sanitation supplies. Throughout this whole ordeal, of course, we recognize that it has been trying on our businesses, especially, and that there's been a great deal of uncertainty as to what's going to happen day to day. So we have really tried to reach out as much as possible just to share on information we have, things that are affecting them at the city level, the county level, the state level, and just keeping them up to date. I will say that Mr. Morris in particular has done a great job at being proactive in getting that information out to our businesses, helping businesses get answers even from other agencies about the programs that are available, and then also trying to anticipate what future needs our businesses may have and how we can better assist them during this period. Obviously, this situation is not over yet, and we will continue to assist our businesses and share whatever resources or information we get as well. Now, if you do want to go back to the other document, the second item tonight is on Cibolo Crossing. So those who had a chance to watch or review the town hall meeting will be a step ahead because there's not a great deal that has changed since it's only been about 2 weeks since that last presentation. That being said, I do want to give a couple progress updates on a few things that have happened since the document in your packet will be about a week old at this point. So we did have Duncan, who received a conditional certificate of occupancy. They're currently offering curbside and drive-through service, and I've heard from both the owner and other staff members who have been there that there is a steady stream of customers that are lining up to get their coffee and treats pretty much all day long. So I definitely want to continue to extend our appreciation to our citizens who are showing such strong support for one of our new businesses. We have Venetian Nails, which is located in that same strip building that Duncan is in. They are currently in their framing phase and have received a partial pass for all the work that's been done so far. They should have their sheetrock up right about now and will be calling in for an inspection for any of that work done up in the ceiling in the future. For Willie's, the city is waiting on first round comments for civil. I was told by our senior building inspector after this had come out that he has since provided them with their plan review notes for any of those items that need to be addressed in their building plans. For Magnolia, hopefully you've had a chance to drive by, you can see that they are going vertical. There's framing that's up there. And honestly, I think this is one of the most exciting parts for me, and I think for most people, because it's when it finally gets off the ground, so to speak, and you really get to see the scope and the scale of what they're bringing. The framing and getting everything up in the walls will take a little bit of time. through this process, so they have not yet called in inspections for that.
And that building is pretty much up. I
It's
drove
getting
by
there.
today and
Yes, I
it's-
did hear that they have an anticipated opening of November. So they are hustling to try to get it up.
Ms. Lee, where is Willie's going to be?
Willie's is up on towards the access road, in front of like where Santico's is.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is Magnolia going to be 2 stories or just 1?
Willie's?
No, Magnolia.
Magnolia, 1 story is all I've seen, yes, in their plans.
The others for like AC. stuff.
And then we have the Dorado Apartments, which are the 305 units of Class A apartments towards the back of the property. If you drive by, you'll see that site work has been done. The permitting department has requested a pre-construction meeting for the buildings, but that meeting has not yet been scheduled. And then finally, we do have Rips Chrysler expansion, which is the road that connects Cibolo and Schertz up there. It'll be the Cibolo portion is going to be a 4-lane roadway with the left turn lanes. And we certainly look forward to this, adding another connection point between our 2 cities, but also providing additional vehicular access to our commercial areas. Because I'm sure you would agree, we want to make it as easy as possible for people to come and shop in Cibolo.
Is there a date yet for when that's going to open?
Not that I am aware of yet.
What's that?
The date for it to be open?
The latest one was gonna be in September when they're gonna have the fun run, but that got
Right
canceled.
now, I know that they've got dirt completely over it to where they protect the road, the sidewalks, the curbs. They've got a lot of dirt over it because they're moving dirt from both sides of from one side to the other side, so.
Yes, sir, thank you.
But I'm glad that they're doing that, other than driving those big loaders across the road and tearing up the road. So it's a plus, what they're doing right now.
Well, from a contractor's point of view, they're just expediting, taking advantage of the situation that,
Absolutely.
protecting their investment, so it'll pay off in the long run.
You think at our next council meeting, you might be prepared to go into executive session with us to discuss some of the things as far as new businesses and things like that are coming, that we need to have non-disclosure agreements or whatever the case may be. Obviously there's some confidentiality with that, but you think you can be prepared to give us a
I certainly can. I will say, I believe since we were doing it quarterly, that next one would be in September by schedule as well. So we could do it September or the next one, whatever council
next council
prefers.
meeting would be good.
Councilman Ward?
Ms. Lee, for Willie's, now we know where, is there anything to release on when they expect they would be? I mean, I know they're early on, but have they communicated, we hope by this time frame they would be ready to go?
Not that we have discussed yet, sir.
All right,
Of
thank
course, as soon as possible is always what they want. And then for us too, we agree.
What's sitting over, it's sitting in planning and engineering right now. They've got yes. So they're still waiting on their,
Yes, so we have requested, my understanding is that we have provided, our senior building inspector has provided his comments on what needs to be addressed for the building. And those have been sent to them. And then we're also waiting for the response to the civil comments that have been sent previously. So there is active communication with them, yes.
thank you, Ms. Lee.
Anything else? Thank you, everyone. I'll see you at the next one then.
Moving on, item 9G, discussion and direction of staff on road improvements needed for the city of Cibolo.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council, and good evening. So I left at your place tonight the same matrix that we had sent out back in June or July of this year. I think it was July 15th. And I have received comments back from at least a couple council members. The purpose of tonight's agenda is to, one, remind the council that we're moving forward with the issuance of debt of about $7.5 million. That should be coming to the council in the next 30 to 60 days. And we're moving forward with the in-house design of Cibolo Valley Drive, which is about $5 million. Of that $5 million, we have about $2.5 million left from those certificates of certificates of obligations. The council has indicated, this is a very important chapter in Cibolo's life we want to move forward with. We do have some additional fund balance within our street sales tax of almost about $1 million that we can pledge for this project. What the help I need for our city staff, if you look at the left-hand column, there's a priority ranking. If the city council would just maybe rank the first set of projects that total up to no more than $3 million, that would help us. That would help us put together a final matrix, and we'll return with the final matrix. I'll visit with the mayor and suggest that we have a workshop sometime in mid-September. Mayor, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Herr, for printing this up for us. And yeah, I know we came into the meeting anticipating the direction and discussion on the road improvements. But Mr. Herrera and I had a conversation, and we just feel like this endeavor is way too important to kind of go on it half-cocked or kind of a slip shot, approach. So with the information that we have, that with the Cibolo Valley Drive and the funds that we have allocated and whatnot, this affords the council to take a good hard look at these road projects and rank them, and so we can have some fruitful discussion in September, if that's okay, Councilman Allen. Councilman Hicks.
So the pink, right? Because the green, we've already got, according to your legend.
Yes, sir, the ones in pink.
Just the ones in pink?
Just the ones in pink. And this would be your priority base for what you think community-wide would be good projects to address. Councilman
Well, I was, Mr. H, I know you and I talked earlier today. I don't know who all sent in. I mean, I know the roads I sent in. I counted up, there were 17 from District 6 that I would like to add. So if we're going to rack and stack, and I remember it was the last meeting before last, Councilman Quinn said he had some to send in. So if that's two council members that have made input, our input's not reflected on here, that you want us to all go rack and stack.
So far, he's just had two, you and I, and the rest of
It's just you?
council.
Okay,
Yeah, they need to do their.
Yours has
turn in
been
their
on
homework.
there for a while, so.
Yeah.
You get the gold star for getting there earlier. But mine were what, I think
2 weeks, 3 weeks?
yeah, it was on the 20th is when, July, when I sent mine in.
Would it be possible, Mr. Herrera, and if it's all or a majority of them, but in this one column here, could you put the district to find out what Mr.
Yes.
Wolver's talking about? Can you put the district in there in between the total funds?
Yeah,
it's on there.
Okay, I see it now.
I know it's a very busy matrix, and
Yes.
Mr. Allen has given me some suggestions on how to improve it. So we'll add the district, but if the council could get me some information, or so I can give to the staff, say within the next 7 or 8 days, that would be very helpful for us.
And I forgot, I got one more product to send you, Mr. H. I had taken this and then what I had, and I went back to the pavement management plan. You remember there's a section, it's got the PMI score, then there's the by year. So I went through and tried to use those color coding with the legend that says, all right, on here, here's where they would fall in that plan, in terms of, I'm trying to remember if I had two columns, one for the PMI or PCI rather, the condition index, and then the other for what year, so we could see how we're racking and stacking compared to what the plan recommends, for whatever that's worth. So I'll send that back out.
Okay, so let's set a goal of our second budget meeting. It'll be next Wednesday for everybody to have the comments turned in. Is that fair? Okay. Thank you, Mr. H.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next, we have the discussion and update on all projects Cibolo, including the old schoolhouse, the public works expansion, and CVD.
I brought this because the last meeting, or the meeting before, I'd brought up that, I think it was the last meeting, and I brought this up because we've got projects out there that we've got the funds. I was wanting to find out where we are for like the expansion of Public Works, the radio tower. I mean, all those were voted on back in 18. I believe we've got the funds, correct, Mr. Herrera? The funds have been allocated to us, and so I want to make sure. Okay, so I want to make sure that we're jumping on it as quickly as possible due to the fact that I don't want to wait 12 years for a project to be sitting in limbo. So, thank you.
So I see Mr. Klein stepping up to the task. Are you ready, Mr. Klein?
Sir? Yes, sir. I'm going to touch the old schoolhouse because this is going to be a fun project. I'm just showing you a couple of pictures of the demolition. This is the outside, the old extension has been taken down. You'll see that the door and the fire escape is still parked on the side over there, but it was going to be moved by the Parks Department and protected in the new restroom facility, the dog run of the restroom facility over here until it's ready to go back. So the fire escape is going to be salvaged and restored. So they tore down the building, found a little cistern, an old cistern under the part of the foundation with the help of Public Works. The other day, they had flushed out the water. It was water probably sitting there for 70 plus years. We think that it was a drain. There was a scupper. We think there was a scupper on the roof that dropped the drain pipe and went down. There's a pipe actually led to it, but it was buried by the extension that was put in the 50s. So the demolition on the outside is complete. And then if you don't mind, Chris, the next page. They worked on the inside. I don't know if anybody has been in the building before the construction went on, but this is the second floor, the stairwell to the side. This had been 3 large classrooms, but when they took the ceiling tile down, the acoustical tiling and the walls out, you see this dark stained wood beading board, and some of it's in a cross pattern, and the rest of the beautiful ceiling. The wood floors. This area right here there was an arc right in here. The architect tells us that these old schools had the second floor was like an auditorium, and so that was where the stage for the auditorium used to sit. The rest of the floor, you can't tell in the picture too much, but where it's a little dull right in here, that was the asbestos glue that held the flooring down. So after the demolition part was done, we had to get a asbestos abatement crew to come in, and they just completed last Friday the asbestos abatement. So now the building the demolition phase is completed. Now the architects are going in and examining what's there to finalize some drawings, put together some drawings so they can work with the contractor and start looking at what HVAC system, what electrical systems, what plumbing will be required, and start finishing up their drawings. And that's where we are today on that project. Any question? Yes, sir.
Are we going to, the plans to, the words that are on the columns, is that part of the plan from a heritage standpoint to keep?
That was for the schools. That was the old White House. Those were pillars that they used.
I get that.
Okay.
My question is, I understand that. Is part of the design plan to keep that from a historic preservation standpoint?
Well, those are just from the last couple of years. I mean, that was being used up until 2003.
I'd like to say yes, but honestly, I don't know if they're still there or not. I'd have to go back up and look. And we're Ms. Gonzalez and myself with IT, we're going to go over there Thursday morning and take a look at the inside now that it's done. I'll take a look and see if that's still there.
I'm looking at the beams behind it. I'd rather have.
Sure. So we're thinking sometime in September when it's a little bit cooler, we'll have a tour. We'll offer a tour to the council to go through the building. It'll be before we start any construction, but you can see it'll be cleaner than what you see here. But by that time, the architect will have gotten in and gotten some measurements done and some idea of what needs to go back into the building. So
I would like that, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Coos?
Thank you, Mr. Klein.
Evening, Mayor and Council. It's nice to be here tonight. I'll give a quick update on a bunch of the other projects that are out there that are related to bonds. The Cibolo Valley Road project, that was one of the ones that was on the list from Councilman Hicks. This is not a bond project, but it is a joint project between the developer, the city of Schertz, and city of Cibolo. Road construction is ongoing. As if you've driven by there, the cement stabilization of the subbase has been completed on the majority of the roadway that's being replaced. Base material is being laid in one section at this point in time, raised in 8-inch lifts or 12-inch lifts, and being recompacted and tested for densities. So they are moving along fairly well on that part of the project. CPS poles, 3 new poles have been installed. Those were the ones that are affected by the continuation of Rips Chrysler as it goes across into the Evo property. For the traffic control device, we had to relocate, take 2 poles out and install 3 poles to allow for the road crossing to be there and for the poles, the traffic control signal poles to be installed. We have 2 remaining poles that need to be installed at cost to the telecommunications companies. We have 1 pole just to the south of the 3 that were installed for Rips Chrysler. That one needs to be raised up, and then there's 1 additional pole that needs to be installed along the right-of-way right at the intersection of IH-35 Access Road and Cibolo Valley Drive. And again, these are all for telecommunications issues out there with everybody having to go aerial and provide greater heights for truck clearance as this project is being completed. So those poles are remaining to be installed. I'm not sure what the cost is, but the cost is being paid by the telecommunications companies directly. It's not being charged to the project. The majority of telecommunication relocations, the underground has been completed. So everybody that was in conflict and underground has now moved. The aerial conflicts or the aerial relocations have not been completed, pending 2 poles that need to be installed. Drainage improvements in phase 1, that is the, I guess what you would call the west side of the road, the Lantana side of the road. Those drainage improvements are essentially near completion at this point in time. Box culverts are in, riprap's been installed. Additional drainage work has been done along the edge there. Project remains on schedule at this time. Phase 1 is estimated to be completed September 30th, and we'll start construction on the other side of the road beginning of October. That's exactly on schedule, and we don't anticipate that to be slipping at this time. Obviously, if we run into a rainy period for some reason, that will change that. But at this point in time, given our current weather patterns, that doesn't appear to be a challenge. You want to do questions on each of these I go through, or just, that might be best, right? I got like 9 of them.
Yeah, if you want to go through them all, Mr. Foose, let's hold our questions till the end.
Mr. Mayor, whichever's best for council.
That'll work.
Okay, yes, sir. Public Works expansion, we're working with RVK Architects. We've done a site assessment. This way we can look at how much land we have, where the building would actually be attached to the current building, the impact on the existing infrastructure, including the buried utilities and the power that comes to the building. We've done a user needs assessment on the building. So this will tell us what types of spaces we're looking for and how big each of the rooms are. We're looking at adding showers to our building. I don't know if anybody currently remembers that. I know we have a lot of newer faces on council, but we have up to 52 employees that work at that building, and a group of them work in water and wastewater. And at this point in time, we don't have any shower facilities. So if someone winds up getting into contaminated water or wastewater, their best bet is to go outside and take a deluge shower outside in their clothes to the best of their ability. So we're looking to do that. We have a kitchen meeting area. It's a common use area that currently seats 16 people. We have, again, up to 50 in the building. We're using a trailer outside for utilities for their office space. The trailer is approaching 42 years old and it's falling apart pretty rapidly at this point in time. It's lived beyond its useful life cycle. It's been moved twice since it came to the city back in the late 1990s. So we are moving forward. We are looking, doing a pre-manufactured steel building on slab. Obviously, there'll be a lot of drainage or water and wastewater things we need to take into consideration because we're going to be building several showers in the building. So we have to get all these things properly engineered into the slab and get those tied into our existing infrastructure. The good news is that water and wastewater is available just outside the building perimeter. So that doesn't add a lot to the cost. And technically, the staff can make the connections once the slab is made. We don't have to have a plumber come in and make the connections. We can make the connections internally because we have that capacity. We will have a task order from our design team for council approval within the next 3 weeks. And we anticipate this project should be in bidding late 2000. So approximately 90 to 100 days from now, we're looking to be in the bid phase, entering the bid phase on this. So we're moving forward on this at this time. Fire station number 3, I know that Chief Troncoso covered this at the last meeting, but there are a few things that I'd like to just bring back up if I may. We are in the bid phase. We have a pre-bid meeting this coming Tuesday during the day. It'll be a Zoom meeting. We're not doing it in person because we have too many plan holders. At this point in time, we have 21 contractors that have taken out plans, and we've more than 28 sets of plans have been sent out. So we have a lot of contractors that have expressed interest in this project. That will hopefully keep our prices down, and we'll do our best to stay in the target range we have set aside for construction. Bids are scheduled to be open on August 28th. That's 2 weeks and 3 days from now. There's always a chance that could be moved back in the event that some sort of a major addenda has to be issued, something comes up as far as the plans after we have our pre-bid meeting and something comes up that needs addressed or something we have to address and a major addenda is issued. There's always enough time to maybe move the bid date back 3 or 4 days by addenda, but we don't anticipate that at this point in time. This is scheduled to come to City Council for award of a contract on September 22nd, 2020.
Is this for a general contractor or a contractor at risk?
A general contractor. We did not use a CMAR program on this.
Okay.
Public radio system, that was another one on the list that Mr. Hicks had a question on. So the LCRA system that we're installing is a bonded project. The majority of the work is complete. The radio shack has been installed. Wiring has been run to it. Technically, it is able to be energized at this point in time. AT&T has completed running fiber optics to the property and then has run the fiber optics from the property boundaries into the building. The fiber optic splicing team and then the activation team has not turned the fiber on at this point in time. That is literally the last step necessary to bring the system up and running. My understanding is that LCRA is working on getting our final FCC licenses in hand so that we have those because those are required. All the antennas and all that has already been installed on the top of the water tower. So we expect this to be turned on somewhere in September. We will be the first of 3 units being installed at this time to go live. There are 2 more being built, one in Seguin and one south of Seguin, southwest of Seguin being built as part of this network outreach. The County of Guadalupe Sheriff's Office is coming onto our system as well. They're joining the LCRA system and they're putting up antennas. My understanding is SSLGC recently jumped on board and they're in the process of obtaining radios and they're getting on the system as well. This adds greater amount of traffic on the network. The good news is we're adding our own repeater system in here, so we'll have a very good radio coverage in our area, and it should add a lot of capacity to our program here for us.
Mr. Foos, do we have the ability to prioritize traffic on that?
We do not. To my knowledge, we do not have the ability to prioritize traffic. Now, we all have discrete channels that we run on, so essentially fire and police are running on discrete channels separate from everybody else. So in my radios, I currently have 13 channels available to me out of 16 on one network, and there's 7 networks I can go to. So there are other subnets in there. So every one of our radios has literally hundreds of opportunities to be on radio. However, every time you key a radio, it has to talk to a tower, and then it has to be discriminated into a fiber optic signal. So the signal goes to the antenna, it gets converted to a fiber optic signal, gets sent to Austin, goes through the computers in Austin, gets sent back out on the signals and broadcast back out. And the lag is measured in about 0.6 of a second. It makes the entire trip from here to Austin and back to the radios in about 0.6 of a second. So it's a pretty robust system and it's got a lot of redundancy built in. So if we're not on our tower, we may be on the tower in Kingsbury, or we might be on the tower in Comal County, or we might be on the tower in Live Oak. And now we'll have the Seguin towers adding into this. So every time we add another set of towers and we add another group of radio repeaters to the system just becomes much more robust, and we're all sharing the total capacity instead of sharing just singularity. If that answers the question. It's actually a very trick system. We were able to show somebody the lag on that by broadcasting in one room and hearing how quickly it comes back to the radio in the other room, because the radios don't talk to each other. And it's about 0.6 of a second is the lag to make that trip back and forth to Austin. Pretty fast. Tully Road project, Mr. Klein is working on this in due diligence with LAN engineers. They are making good progress on the design, and that is moving forward at this point in time. There's really not a lot more information to share. We've shared some of that in past meetings, but it is in design. We're working on pavement designs, as well as looking at some of the drainage challenges in the area, what we can do and how much funding is available to take care of these drainage problems, while we're working with a limited amount of money available for the project. So that is moving forward. Progress has been made. A pavement section, we're working on designing a pavement section that will support the traffic that's there and allow for a road that has a lifespan that's measured in tens of years instead of shorter periods of time. The object is build a road that'll give us 10 to 20 years of service, not 4 to 8 years of service. So we have to stretch our budget as much as we can to get the road we need there, so we don't wind up having a road that comes back apart pretty quickly. Miracle League Field is another one of the bonded projects out there. We're working with the YMCA. YMCA has been in the process of doing some fundraising on that. Mr. H, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they've raised about 130-something, $120,000, not counting the school money. About 125, 126,000. Yes, sir?
What do you need for that? Is there a specific goal that you're looking for fundraising?
Yes. There is a goal that we're looking for. Basically, to build the project out to its maximum size, we're looking to have approximately $1.2 to $1.3 million to do everything we want to do there, which includes a large ADA restroom, some shade area, as well as a very large handicap accessible, all-inclusive playground area, plus the Miracle League field, plus some parking and some other things. At this point in time, the YMCA has raised approximately $125,000. The school district has pledged $250,000. Over a 5-year period. The YMCA is going to front the money from the school pledge up front. So we take their 125 plus the 250, brings us to 375, and we have $500,000 set aside at this point in time. So we're closing in on the $900,000 mark as money raised. That'll be more than enough money to get us started building the Miracle League field, as well as starting on the playground and some other amenities there. And we're still in the process of looking at other possible benefactors for the program. So the YMCA is doing the fundraising side of this. They have the capacity to do that. They have people that do this on a regular basis within their network. So they have the outreach capacity internally to do these things. So they're a great partner for this. We will be presenting at some point in time in the not too distant future an interlocal agreement between the city and the YMCA for them to basically be the lead on the project as they're moving forward.
So we need about 300,000 or 400,000.
That if we were able to raise $300,000 or $400,000 more, we'd be able to do a lot more on the project. Mr. H, did you want to add anything to that, sir?
The only thing I was going to add, the $900,000 mark builds a field and the bleachers and the scoreboard. The additional money pays for the playground and the additional restroom facilities.
Right.
And so we can move forward at the $900,000 level based on conversations with the Y, but their goal is to try to raise as much as they can so we can just do a turnkey project. All of you know that the COVID-19 has really stopped the flow of capital for certain projects, and I think the Y went through a downsizing because of the COVID, but they're starting to reopen all their offices, and hopefully this will get them back to where they need to be.
Thank you.
Councilman Wolver, you had?
Yes, I was going to, good time to plug the 380 agreement we have with Santitos and San Antonio Area Foundation, which money out of that is supposed to be reinvested back into the community. Encourage staff to go look at. They've recently redone their grant categories. There's now 4: cultural vibrancy, livable and resilient community, successful aging, and youth success. And there might be 2 other that might be suitable. Now, the thing is, they can't, as I understand. Thank you. As I understand, they just can't hand the city the money. Their rules are it's got to go to a qualified 501c3. There's some other things in there about how long that 501c3 has been in existence. So I would encourage you, if we're getting that close, and man, what a great way to put part of that 380 into effect to our benefit.
They have been visited by the Y and also my office. We've talked with their chairman. As you know, when the COVID hit, the theater and the entertainment industry has really slowed down quite a bit. I don't know where they are in their discussions, but they have been approached.
Might have a few more projects to go ahead and cover real quick. FM 1103 utility relocation project. This is the Cibolo portion of the project, which is the installation of new 16-inch water mains along FM 1103 in multiple locations, and the removal of the old 16-inch water mains, which are in conflict with the future project. We are complete, and all we lack to close our project down is basically doing a walkthrough, make sure everything that was in contract was done. The remediation of any sites have been taken care of. We have one site that needs some additional hydromulching. Other than that, they basically addressed everything within their contract that they can. As I mentioned at a prior meeting, we do have one section of about 500 feet of water main that cannot be removed. It's out of service because it is buried under a gas main that is in service, which is buried under a fiber optic line, which is in service. And AT&T has indicated they don't believe they'll be able to get to that fiber optic line for approximately 90 to 180 days. So we're going to finish out our contract. We'll get the contractor finished out. We'll get the walkthroughs all completed. We'll get them to the point where they can apply for their retainage at some point in time in the not too distant future. And we'll just carve that piece of the contract out at this point in time. And when we're ready, we'll come back. Either staff will attempt to remove this, or we'll go out for some sort of a short reimbursement program to get that one piece of main out of the way. We just can't wait and hold the contractor this long out into the future, because it really doesn't serve any purpose to have the contractor held up for one piece of main that he really has no control over. To give a quick update on a project, and this is really important to note, GVEC, all their work is complete. They had one pole left that needed to be relocated or changed out to an even taller pole, which got done. In one case, I think they've installed now a 60-foot or a 65-foot tall pole. And again, this is be able to span the highway with enough room so as the highway comes up that don't have any conflicts. There were some guy wires that were in conflict with some of the sound walls, and I believe those have been addressed as well. Centerpoint Energy work is ongoing. They've already installed the gas main all the way from starting at where Knights Crossing is next to the school, all the way across the front of the school over to Wild Road. Then they continued on from the Wild Road area, have gone up FM 1103. And the last time I checked, they're all the way up by Turning Stone at this point in time. And at the same time, they were simultaneously had another drilling crew drilling southbound, starting at I-35 coming south. There are some challenges with the gas main up at I-35, conflicts with other utilities and newly found buried treasures out there in that intersection, but they're working their way through this project and getting those things completed. Charter Communication work is ongoing to get their lines relocated as needed. They are working actively at that. AT&T is also working on this. Their project's broken down into 4 phases. They're working on phase 1, phase 3, and phase 4. Phase 4 is in a final design phase. Phase 3, they're already putting pipes in the ground. Phase 1, they're getting ready to start putting fiber in the ground. That's the most important part of this, because essentially that's the key why the date got pushed back for the letting, because essentially they weren't going to be clear up at the I-35 intersection coming southbound in time. So AT&T has been pushing as rapidly as possible to get into the conduits and get the fiber optic relocated and get the old fiber down so we can keep moving forward with that. Schertz had to take out another contract. They have another water main that turned up in conflict after they got finished with their project. After doing sewers and water mains up there, they've got another water main that had to be relocated recently. So tonight, they're at council tonight, getting an award for a contract to relocate one of their water mains. And my understanding is they're awarding the contract to the same contractor we used, M&C Fonseca, for our project. So they're trying to get everything done. The project is expected to be let, the same as awarded, in January of 2021, and construction is expected to start somewhere around late March, early April of 2021. There's been no slippage to that, and everybody believes now at this point in time that work has progressed far enough along that there isn't any reason to think we won't be there. There are no issues laying out there that we haven't been addressed. And I have that under the FM 11. The other part of this is that the plans are now 95% complete. They've actually sent us a full set of 95% plans. when they say 95%, basically the plans are complete. They're just out for review by peers and others to make sure nothing was missed or left out. So they're in the process of doing that. When they'll jump from 95 to 100% plans, they'll be ready to basically go out for bid. I believe they're still looking to bid them somewhere around the end of September, beginning of October for an award in January. That's pretty much how they work that out. I still participate in the calls every Monday. The calls range from about 35 to about an hour and a half, depending on what's on there. And I'm going to stay on those calls for the utility relocations. And I've asked TxDOT officials to allow me to be part of the construction team as we move forward into construction. So I can be in the process of that and be in the meetings as they're moving forward in construction, representing the city of Cibolo. So we have a seat at the table, if I could use a term that's frequently used. So we know what's going on. We can hear the challenges and we can share our challenges with them as they're moving forward. There's one last project on here, the Tolly Park project. Will be coming to council, I believe, on August 25th for award of the design proposal from CDS Murray and RVK Architects to do the design work for that project. That was part of the bond. Approximately 1/3 of the money was set aside to do a full master plan for the project, as well as to do the initial phase work, developing the walking trails and some of the other attributes we're looking to do with the remainder of the money set aside. So we should be coming to council at your next council meeting for award of that task order at that point in time to allow us to get started on that and get that project moving forward. Mr. H, I believe I've covered all the projects.
I've got a couple of questions, Mr. Foose. Any new updates on the Town Creek?
I can share with you in public that basically we now have a contract being reviewed by our city attorneys that were supplied by the attorney for Mr. Way.
Okay.
My understanding is that there was one possible challenge in the contract, and it had to do with some language they wanted entered as far as indemnification. And as Mr. Garza and I have had multiple conversations over many years about that. Normally, we don't allow changes to that. City doesn't have the ability to indemnify a private individual. We don't have that capacity. We can put that language in there, but we have to add language that says as applicable by the state constitution of Texas, which basically gives us the protection necessary. And it's in the review right now. And I believe the attorneys at Mr. Garza's office are due to have that back to me over the next day or two. So when that comes back, we'll be ready to go to a closing on that. He's asked several times about how soon can we close on the property. So we're looking forward to getting that moving forward. Then we'll work with our last remaining landowner, Randy Ridge, to get that one secured up. As I said at prior meeting, we have the construction plans already broken apart into mass grading, so we'd be able to move pretty quickly once we have the land secured to go out for bids for mass grading, which means we can start on the channelization, which will allow us to move into construction of the roadway because we need to move all the dirt out of the way before we start building the roadway.
And one other thing is, like on the website that y'all have got the projects, you've got construction scheduled for, our public works expansion fiscal year 2020. So that construction, the expansion over at Public Works will start this year then.
We're expecting to start at the end of 2020, not fiscal year 20, but at the end of 2020. Okay. And one of the challenges we have, Mr. H alluded to a little bit earlier, one of the challenges we're having is with these design firms and other people is a lot of the firms send a lot of people to work from home. So it's a little more difficult to get people to come in for meetings, and we have to schedule these things. And a lot of times they become Zoom meetings, and it's kind of slowed the process down a little bit. And, it's just the nature of the current business. But we are moving forward. We have had those meetings in advance about how to plan this out, and we're looking to have a task order for them in the next couple of weeks. And they said that they believe the project should be able to be biddable by the end of 2020.
Okay, if we can update.
Actually, Mr. Hicks, that has been updated. If you look on the website, there's a new button on the front page. The website takes you to a whole new version of that takes you to a whole new
This is
list.
one I got last week. So is it newer than just last week?
It's new since last week, sir.
Okay.
I'm not sure Chris, maybe you know when that button went live, but it was either late last week or early it was yesterday.
Okay.
So there's a whole new version of that on there. It gives a better description.
Well, that's why I was questioning, because, we've got these projects and we'll make sure we're moving forward. So thank you.
So yes, sir, there is, if you go on the front page, there's a new button you can push right to. That takes you right to, and it's got a whole bunch of information and pictures and other things on there. It's a lot cleaner way of looking at our projects and where we are on those projects.
Thank you.
Councilman Allen, you had a question?
Thank you, Mayor Boyle. Mr. H, could you give me a breakdown of the costs that have been spent so far for the new fire station as far as the architecture, furniture, and fixtures? I don't expect you to have it right now, but if you could just email that to the
Yes,
council.
sure, yeah, definitely. We'll get that information. I'll visit with our staff and we'll get that out to you. I'll send it to the full council since you brought it up at the council meeting. This way everyone knows.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council?
Well, thank y'all for getting this done. I do.
As always, a pleasure to give you guys a briefing on all the wonderful projects we're doing for the city. We always stand ready to provide them in the future. Mr. H, thank you.
All right. Item I, discussion and direction to staff on possible changes to city's ethics ordinance and potential associated changes with the policy directive.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. H, if you don't mind, I'll take the lead on this one. Okay. Well, the ghost of my dad listened to the last council meeting and he thumped me in the head and said, what were you thinking? Suggesting to remove an ethics ordinance. Ethics is important. That really didn't happen, but his voice was in my head. And I'll admit, I was wrong. Should have never made that recommendation. I don't know if if you've had thoughts afterwards or not. And I'm not afraid to say that. So bottom line up front, I do not advocate for the rescission of the ethics ordinance. And I'm really hesitant about the suggestion to basically shrink it down to that one statement that says we'll follow the state and the federal. And I'll get into some of that, and I'm sure Mr. Garza will jump in if I mess up on the one explanation of the why. But I do have some suggestions, and I know that the file you all just got today is kind of last minute, same day. So I did not expect everybody to have read through that, and that would help stiff you through where my headspace was on some of the changes I was thinking about.
Mr. Wolver, before you
Yes.
go too much further, would it be possible that we postpone this to next council meeting so that we can actually look through this and we can have some
Well,
written recommendations?
I've got a hybrid of that. So my idea tonight was to not make decisions and all that. It was to explain
Okay.
that stuff so that the next meeting, we could come back. You guys would have, 2 weeks to hack it up, red ink it, do whatever. If you're happy with it, great. And then at the next meeting, we'd have time to digest it and then, present some direction to staff. But I at least wanted to take tonight to explain the why and where I'm
Good,
coming
because
from.
I know that in the past, we have made mention that bringing and dropping stuff in our lap at the last minute. And this was the
Well,
last
yeah,
minute thing, so.
That's happened more than once, Councilman Hicks, and again, it wasn't meant to make that decision tonight. It's meant to get it out. A lot of us up here have full-time jobs, and this is something I've been working on for the last week, trying in between jobs and in the evening. So unfortunately, today is the day I could get all that put together. But again, the intent was to not make decisions on that tonight. So actually, what kind of pushed this forward a little bit with me is a couple citizens contacted me either by text or phone call, and it was a pleasant surprise of who it was because it's people I typically don't get contacted by. So that was nice to feel, and I appreciate them feeling comfortable to approach me about it. So what I promised everyone was that I would take their discussions, I would have a chat with the city attorney, reanalyze everything, and then bring it back up to topic. So here we are. And I really tried to go back to the basics. Now considering the input given to me by some of the citizens, but this ordinance came around in 2014. It's been updated a couple times and changed around. And I actually rewatched Mr. Garza's video, riveting stuff. No, actually it's very, very good. You can see that he's got a passion for this and he states as much up front. All that was good because it helped me break it down. Not really a true root cause analysis, but I kind of had the aha moment, and it wasn't an issue with the ethics ordinance. It was some of the other things that are in it, and we touched on the last meeting. And so I was able to break it down to basically 4 things. One was the weaponization of the code of conduct. The ethics ordinance, from looking back, has not been weaponized. Nobody can find evidence of an actual ethics violation being filed. I think there was one several years ago, but actually was a code of conduct. I think it was worded as a ethics violation, but there was no ethics violation. It was somebody's conduct online and a comment they had made. And everything of recent has been either Open Meetings Act complaint or code of conduct. Notice there's no disincentive or deterrent for citizens to not file fraudulent complaints. They could just file a complaint and it could be not substantiated in that first level review by the attorney's office and off they go. And you can wash, rinse, repeat. They could do that all day long. No punitive measures for us to consider to apply if a complaint is substantiated. There's reference, and this is where I may need the attorney to make sure I'm not stepping outside the fact lane here. There's words in there, if you look through the charter, about punitive damages if somebody does not obey when we ask for info. Oh my gosh. Say again? Subpoena. There we go. Thank you. But there's nothing in there if you do something wrong. So again, there's nothing there in the back of somebody's head of maybe I better think about this twice if I go ahead and do something against the ethics ordinance. So I think if we were to really push for rescinding the ethics ordinance, that tells the public my concern is it tells the public we really don't hold ethical behavior in high regard. And I know that's not the message anybody here wants to send. To even amend it to say something to the effect of we'll follow all the state and local ethics codes is not sufficient because the state ethics codes does not cover local elected officials in some instances. And this is a point that Mr. Guards had brought out where there's nothing here. Would you please provide the hiring example you gave me?
Sure. The hiring example I gave, nepotism covers certain degrees of relationship. So if a council member called the city manager and says, I want you to hire my third cousin as a police officer, that's not covered by your nepotism statute because that relationship is so far away. But there would be no violation under the state law because there's nothing that prohibits a council member from picking that up. Your local ordinance would prohibit that. You're using your undue influence, your position as supervising that city manager to tell him, I want you to hire my third cousin as a police officer. So it would be a local ethics violation, but not a state law violation because it would not fall under nepotism because it's too far away from what the nepotism law covers. That would be the example.
Thank you. And as Mr. Guards had reminded me, is our ethics ordinance is actually a lot stricter because of some of those features like that. So what do I propose? What am I really getting at? Well, to address the weaponization of the code of conduct, I propose we don't consider alleged violations of code of conduct as an actionable offense. Basically, whatever document we produce in the end says, or doesn't even give somebody an avenue. I mean, because we all, as members of council, if somebody here thought any one of us had violated it, we can censure. I get it. It's kind of just a piece of paper, but there is something that can be done. And if it's a member that's an appointed, well, we already know it's stated up front, you serve at the pleasure of council. So why do we really need to waste the time and the resources if you think that somebody has violated? We can still have a discussion, go into back to whatever. But why spend a lot of time and resources on a code of conduct violation or a complaint to allow that complaint? So I just think we still have a way to address it. We just don't need a big formal way to go through it. So my suggestion, although I still think code of conduct is important, is to decouple it from the ethics ordinance. And if you had a chance to look through, you'll see I drafted up a new council policy directive that covers code of conduct. It's just a guide. It says that already. And I think a policy directive would be a more appropriate document to have it in there. So it's still all the same wording. I may have done some, happy to glad stuff in there. And I would ask you all to do the same thing. To address the weaponization of ethics violations complaints, if they were to ever happen, that's why I propose we use usage of a sworn complaint. So somebody puts their, yes, this really happened. Now, it may not be substantiated, but they just can't go out and lie and say you did something. So there's a penal code consequence for that person potentially if they were to lob a lie in a complaint. So, they're going to think twice before they sign that form. Punitive measures, whether it's for an appointed or an elected member, first of all, it'd have to be substantiated. And I would propose amending the ethics ordinance to allow us to impose a fine of up to $500. That wording's already in there for, not complying with a subpoena. And that's $500, Mr. Garza, that's the max allowed, correct? Doesn't mean it's automatically going to be 500. It just gives us a window, an opportunity there. Finally, to counter the no one told me, I didn't know about any of this, whether it's violations of the ethics ordinance or running afoul of any policy directives, I propose we amend a little bit. I initially said reinstate the statement of acknowledgement. It's in the original ethics ordinance. Do we still have people sign that? That's been so long since I've been appointed. I couldn't remember if we still had it. So in that packet I sent you, there's recommended rewording of that, which also they acknowledge the potential criminal penalties that could come out of that. Basically, it's one time, you signed it, you're an adult, and we don't have to have that discussion again. So overall, here's what I'm looking for. We don't rescind the ethics ordinance, and we don't amend it to just that short entry. We do amend the ethics ordinance, remove the code of conduct, create a new policy directive that covers that. Add for the ability for council to impose a fine of up to $500 on a respondent or respondents that are in a substantiated complaint of our ethics ordinance. Use a sworn complaint, require that rather, and require newly elected members to watch the recording of the ethics training session. That would just be, I think when I initially sent it out, I had a good input. I just said do it once. But there could be new rules that come out. So basically, you do it once, and it's good for 5 years. So you could be appointed, come off, be elected, come off. As long as you're within 5 years, you'd be good. So that allowed a chance for catch up to anything new. Do not carry forward the ability to file complaints of alleged violations of the code of conduct. And there are a couple of things I recommended updating. The current policy directive 2020-002 is updating that member statement, putting that in there rather. Yes, sorry. The part about the training video, that would be updated to that. I think that's an applicable place to put that ethics training session. I think that's about it. So I know it was a lot, but hopefully that'll explain next week or two. You go through those documents I sent. Some of them I highlighted in yellow if it was some happy to glad stuff, and if there's anything I added in there, such as talking about imposing a fine, that way it would jump out to you of what was new or being suggested as new. Thank you.
Councilman Quinn?
So I just got a couple concerns, especially when it comes to the fine. None of us here get paid by the city of Cibolo. And so when you start taking money out of people's wallets, it's coming out of their family mouths and things of that nature, right? So, if we're going to start talking about fines and stuff like that, then we probably need to start talking about the city of Cibolo paying me a salary to be up here as a council member, because right now I do this for free, right? I'm an elected official and I do it 100% for free. So if we're going to talk about fines, then I want to talk about the city of Cibolo paying us some sort of salary, some sort of compensation for this position. And secondly, I think we missed section 3 of this. Section 3 is probably a pretty important piece because it talks about hearings. So in the original ethics ordinance, that had a thing about hearings and stuff like that, right? So if we're accused of an ethics violation, that we need to have some sort of standard that we're going to follow for a hearing and all that sort of stuff so that we can plead our case and everything along that lines. But it's not in here.
I included just the ethics, well, it needs to be cut and pasted back in there. I was not suggesting to take away the ability to do a hearing. That's in our ordinance, and we kind of duplicate it.
What's that?
Into the ordinance.
Yeah. Okay. And then how do we de-weaponize the the ethics complaints, right? So frivolous ethics complaints, because there's nothing, who cares if they sign a sworn statement or whatever the case might be at the end of the day? Hey, if they believe it to be true in the heart, then they believe it to be true. So who's gonna stop, and what's gonna incentivize individuals from putting up frivolous ethics complaints? I've had 5 or 6 of them since I've been on council, all of them pretty much unfounded. One is still pending with the state of Texas. But so what's going to stop all that? So if you're going to want to start taking money out of my wallet, then we got to start taking a deeper look at some of this stuff. So I've got some deep concerns with a $500 fine.
And that's, fine is totally up to the council, but I do want to point out that you've never had an ethics complaint. You've had a standard of conduct complaint. And one of the recommendations is to remove the standards of conduct, or another option is to not allow for a complaint to be based on standard of conduct. Personally, as I've said this in the video, I am not a fan of your standard of conduct if they can be used for complaints, because people are going to disagree with someone's Facebook, Twitter comments and so forth and feel offended by what they read or saw. And so that's why I've never been a fan of being able to file a complaint on standard of conduct. So in my opinion, your charter doesn't require you to have a standard of conduct. It requires you to have a code of ethics. So either eliminate the standard of conduct, or do not allow for a complaint to be filed based on the standard of conduct.
So standard of conduct was section 3?
Well, that's why I said take it out of the ethics code. Just make it's an aspirational thing. This is how, it's a guide. That's why I said it's just a guide. This is how we would like you to behave. And we don't give an opportunity for somebody to file a complaint. If there's something any 7 of us have an issue with it, you don't even have to have the code of conduct. You could recommend somebody be. So that's how I try to remove the weaponization aspect of the code of conduct, was to not have it something, a complaint to be filed against, and just thought if it's not going to be an ordinance, a will, must, shall, we put it in a policy. It's a policy that we want you to follow.
Or we get rid of it altogether.
So Mach 6, the fine part, again, it has to be a complaint that's substantiated. Now, one thing we did not talk about, I did talk with Mr. Garza, was we have the process for the hearing. And if it is recommended that it's something that needs to have a hearing, we are those people, unless it's against one of us, and then it has to be an independent counsel. Is that still accurate, Mr. Garza? So it's an impartial person, and they have to go by the preponderance of the evidence, whatever those standards are. So one, we've not had an actual, no kidding, ethics complaint filed in recent memory. 2, there's going to be a bar that needs to be met. It's already going to go through the attorney's office to determine if it even goes forward in the first place. Mr. Gardner, would you talk to his concern, which is good, is on a fraudulent complaint? And I know you and I had a separate discussion about fraudulent versus frivolous and those, but in terms of somebody signing a statement, and if the complaint's not substantiated, that's not saying they are lying on that complaint form, right? So what's that bar it's set?
An example that I gave Councilman Oliver during our phone conversation was, I'm special counsel to the City of San Antonio Ethics Review Board, and a lot of complaints that I've assisted were based on media reports. A story that they awarded this contract because of a relative. It wasn't based on any information, but simply based on a media report. So a person comes forward and files a complaint based on that media report. They have no independent knowledge. Is that a frivolous complaint? I would say no. That person, good faith, they have not done any independent investigation, but on good faith are relying on what they read as an ethics violation, would not be a frivolous complaint. In all the years I've done this, we've had one situation where a frivolous complaint was found by an ethics review board, where it was clear that the individual filed it knowing what he filed was false. That's about the only time you're going to be able to really prove a frivolous complaint. A lot of ethics ordinances try to interpret what a frivolous complaint is. You can look at what other cities have done. It's not always very clear. But I like sworn complaints. And the reason I like sworn complaints, because if you can prove someone lied, they committed perjury.
Gotcha.
And so that's the only reason I would request sworn complaints. Most ethics ordinances that I've seen do require a sworn complaint, because that person who's going to sign that they are swearing that everything they're saying is truth, they should have no qualms about that if they know what they're writing is true. So they should have no problem swearing that that is a true statement, or affirming, because swearing or affirming. And so, but again, that truly is a policy decision of the council. Right now, there is nothing that requires anybody from filing a complaint based on a Facebook story or a Twitter story and so forth. And it's not a sworn complaint, and so it has to be reviewed by the city attorney.
And I'm all for de-weaponizing this stuff, right? I mean, I think Ms. Simmons, she works her butt off. She gets a lot of complaints, and then obviously it comes back to you. So I'm all for de-weaponizing it, and I got it. A lot of stuff that was filed as an ethics complaint falls up under the code of conduct or whatever the case might be. So I'm with getting rid of the code of conduct, putting it separate in a policy to where nobody can file a complaint on that. And then going into the code of ethics. So, obviously, as long as you're doing the right thing, you're not stealing money and all this sort of stuff, I got it. I'm still hung up on the fine. I mean, because we are doing this for free. So, but at the end of the day, I just want to make sure that this cannot be weaponized, the way it's been, right? So, and those are my major concerns.
Mr.
And
Garza.
I appreciate those, Council. The only thing I would sound on the fine, again, it's a range. Change it, make it 100, whatever, earmark it towards a certain fund. But one, somebody has to have the proof that you're. So if it's appointed members, we are going to be that review panel, or we look at is there another independent way we can have it reviewed, so it removes us from looking like we're just a kangaroo court on somebody. At the same time, I would say if you don't do anything unethical, you're not going to be at risk of a fine, whether it's $1 or $500.
And I'm not worried about that, but again, you haven't sat on my side of the table, right? So you haven't seen the attacks or felt the attacks that I've felt as a council member in a short period of time when I haven't done anything against the code of ethics, or I haven't done anything against the code of conduct. So I've got issues, right? Because you've got some people out there that want to weaponize this. They want to weaponize social media. They want to weaponize a bunch of different things. And hell, we're staring down the barrel of a lawsuit because of a lot of this stuff, right? I mean, so at the end of the day, I'm just very, very cautious of how we do things.
Councilman Allen?
Okay, I just wanted to say that, I think that I got this document at 4:02 PM and I realized that, and it was during the middle of a work day, so I wasn't exactly gonna, break away from my meetings for work to read through this. And so I think that all of us are gonna need a little bit more time to digest these proposed changes. And so I think that we ought to handle this similar to how we're handling, the roads list, where every councilman or councilwoman can take the time to go through the current ordinance, just like Councilman Walliver did, and we can all put our 2 cents in it. We can highlight it like he did, and come up with the sections we want to strike and the ones that we want to modify in some way, and then we can all send those in, whether it be to our city manager and Peggy, and to Frank Garza. And so that's how I would propose to handle this, is that we all, take our time over these next 2 weeks. I know we got budget coming up next week. We should probably be focused on that. That's, probably what's, a little more important. And then take a look at this sometime, maybe in September, and revisit it and see if we can take the collective suggestions and put it together into one document that we can all agree on.
Councilwoman. Actually, hold on, Councilman Gibbs, I'm sorry. You're good, Councilman Hicks?
Mr. Garza, haven't you said time and time again that we're the only city that has the, what is it, the code of conduct?
You're the only city that I know that has a code of conduct where someone can file a complaint.
Okay,
Other cities have code of conduct of, they pledge to follow these standards and codes, but the the code, but it's not an ethics code where you can be, where complaint. You're the only city that I know that has a standard of conduct where complaints could be filed.
okay, so we needed to get rid of that, is basically what we're saying. Okay.
Councilman Gibbs?
Just want to say thank you for the time and thought you put into this.
Thank you.
Good piece of work. Get us going in the right direction.
Mr. Wolf, I would agree with you. When you said, let's get rid of it, I was like, no, we can't get rid of that. I mean, if anything, we put something in there that says we will follow Texas ethics. Maybe we have everybody watch what Texas has, like the other two videos that we have to watch before. But yes, I agree with you. I was like, there's no way to get rid of the ethics because then, so.
Yeah, and it wasn't, so, I had a moment, had the V8 moment for, those that are old enough to remember that commercial, which should be everybody in here. But going back to is, so we need to keep that. That's the wrong message to send. And I got myself wrapped around the axle on the code of conduct piece. Apologize, sure. But it was just, it got my crawl, and it was not the right message to send to the public. So I focused on the wrong thing, and can agree, disagree, somewhere in the middle on those things, and that's absolutely fine. So that's what this whole process is about. Is I don't want to say there's a problem and then do the Apollo 13 thing and say your solution's on the table and throw all the parts. I wanted to try to get some of those parts together as recommendations. And if there's another part that gets built out of that, or it's designed a little bit differently, that's okay. That's what this body is for.
I will say that I had the same epiphany the next morning, actually. I woke up and said, oh, we can't do that. When I went and looked at, the hearing piece and all that sort of stuff, I was like, ooh, we can't do that. And I really then at that point started focusing on the code of conduct and looking at it. Can we get rid of the code of conduct?
I had a text when, by the time I got to my Jeep, looked at, uh-oh. So, it was that quick.
So I agree with everything that you have in here, minus the fine. I mean, other than that, I think you've done your due diligence, and I appreciate it, Mr. Williver. I mean, you definitely did. I want to go back and look at it. I probably want to add a few things as well, but I mean, for the most part, thank you very much.
Well, is the next council meeting too soon? I mean, the budget will be done after next week, at least the initial push. So
I think the next council meeting will be fine.
Okay.
End of the month.
All right, thank you.
I mean, I don't even get a few days to really look at it. I mean, I've looked at this numerous times already, right? So I already got some ideas on how to attack it, so.
I did have one question for Councilman Oliver. In your new section 8, failure to adhere to code, it says members will only be investigated for allegations of violations of the code of conduct if a sworn complaint is filed. Did you mean code of ethics?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I just wanted,
No, I don't need that disconnect.
Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure. Okay.
Okay, all right. Well, I would say that we would postpone this to the next meeting. Let's get this behind us. Already got my notes on it, and I think we can just kind of rush through it, but I thank Councilman Wolver for dispersing his commentary on it. It's going to make things easier for everybody, so thank you. 9J, discussion and direction to staff on city events scheduled for calendar 2020. Mr. Simmons.
Mayor, I noticed Peggy put my name by this one. This is normally hers. So I thought, being away from 1 week was pretty good, huh? Go ahead, Peggy. Go ahead.
I was waiting for a big revelation there.
I was
what-
too.
What are we gonna get hit with here?
What's he got up his sleeve?
We shut down football
Mayor and
season.
council, we have a few events that we still have not discussed going to the end of the year. The first one being the Shred Day, which I have scheduled for October, the October 4th, I believe it is. It's the first weekend in October. We have had numerous calls every day on Shred Day. So I don't see a problem with Shred Day, and I say this because people stay in their cars. All they do is drive up. We take the items out of the back of their car and we put it in the shredding machine. So I don't see where we would have a problem with that. I know that the people that normally help are the staff that works for me, and Mr. Herrera is assistant. Leanne always helps us. And then we also have a couple council members that come out, in our fire departments sometimes will help. And, but it's a good event for the community, and we have canceled everything so far. And this at least gives one opportunity for our citizens to say, hey, where they're still thinking about us, because we're getting so many calls on Shred Day. The second event that we need to look at, and there's two other events.
Christmas tree lighting and the Christmas tree and the parade.
Christmas tree, tree lighting and the parade. And so those are two items that we need to look at, especially the parade, because at this time, I would already be sending out notices to people to be in the parade. So it's something that we need to really, are we going to do a parade or not do a parade this year? The Christmas tree, the tree lighting might be a little harder because we usually have choirs from one of the elementary schools, and who knows if we're still going to be in this social distancing in December timeframe when we do that, but we still have planning to do on that and everything. So we need to kind of look at these things. Maybe a couple of them can wait until, another month before we make a decision, but it's something that you as a council needs to let us as staff know what you want us to do.
Well, Miss Peggy, I would say that the Shred Day, as long as we've got gloves, to take those objects out of those people's cars. Because I know a lot of times we don't have gloves, we're just going, we're grabbing them. But as long as we've got gloves, I think that wouldn't be a problem. I agree with you that I don't see no problem with that. As long as we instruct them. I know a lot of times they try to get out and help, and we're like, please stay in your car. It makes it easier for us. But no, I'm with you on that. We postpone on making a decision on those other two, but definitely Shred Day. I mean, I'd take the rest of council's opinion too, but I think that I've got no problem with that.
My 2 cents on it, Peggy, is thank you. Yeah, I think the Shred Day is good, but as far as the Christmas events, I would suggest that we plan on doing them for now and contact, get our list of people that are going to participate in the parade, send it out. And if, I would hate to cancel it now and then have an epiphany in November or whatever, October.
Plan for the best.
Yeah.
Right.
And same with, I'd go ahead and send the invites out on the tree lighting, for the elementary schools and whatnot. And hey, no harm, no foul if we just can't have it. That would be my suggestion.
I think so.
And Ms. Peggy, are we going to do another one of those hazardous chemicals around the same time as Shred Day?
That is scheduled. I don't have the exact dates for that, but it is already scheduled for the hazardous waste. I believe it's it's either September or October timeframe, but those dates are already set, and I'll send them to the council tomorrow, so you'll know those dates. It's just the hazardous waste and the pickup that they have back in our back parking lot.
Okay.
And those dates are already set. and I'll send them out to the council. I know they're probably on our website. If not, they're going to be put on our website in the next week, but I'll send them out to the council.
That's bulk pickup, you said?
Thank you.
Bulk pickup?
That's
tracks,
where
yes.
people bring those, all their.
Dumpsters.
Yeah, the dumpsters are going to be out in the back, and it's going to be for a couple weekends, I believe 3 weekends, one in September, a couple times in October. And those dates are set now.
Okay.
So,
And we just set those dates yesterday, so apologize, we haven't sent that out yet.
And shred day will be the 3rd.
yeah, the first Saturday in October.
Yep, the 3rd.
Is that Sura Bash still off the table? I mean, we haven't had one of those in probably since this time last year, right?
Okay, and that is another event that we do have, and that's normally in October also. And I think a lot of that depends on what's going on at the time, I guess, because we do have a lot of people that do volunteer for that. We couldn't send more than 10 people out in one group or whatever. But I can talk to Mr. Foos because he's the one that heads that up, and we can get something back out to the council on that.
So I am going to have some comments. I'm going to piggyback off of the mayor's thoughts. I think these upcoming events, that we just plan that we're going to have them. We send out the letters, but with a caveat that because of the COVID-19, things could change, and to check with whichever staff member is available. And we'll try to get the word out ahead of time. But if you don't plan for it and then you decide to do it, that could be chaos for us. Thank you, Mayor. That's a good idea.
So, and one more thing to add, this isn't per se an event. I'm trying to pull this up on my phone as we're speaking. But we do have our Cibolo art contest that our staff put together. And in particular, Christine Pollock, we would encourage everyone. I know things are busy right now with school and everything, but we're looking for artists to color pieces of a puzzle. And there's 4 different age categories: kinder through 4th, 5th through 8th, 8th through 12th, and then 18 years and older. So we will have, that will be judged, and we will prominently display at the digital library and on our downtown mural. So the deadline is going to be 5 p.m. August 18th. That's next Tuesday. So I would encourage everyone to take a look at this. This is on our website. So
Is this open to just Cibolo citizens or
yes,
anybody?
Cibolo citizens.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So, yep. And with that, is there any more discussion on the upcoming city events? Item K, discussion from council members who attended seminars, events, and meetings. I had a Northeast Partnership meeting last week, last Thursday, and not much to report there. It's much of the same. Every city's going through the same. The report that I got from some of our sister cities, though, their economic impact on their sales tax is a little bit more than what we've seen here. So they're making some adjustments, but there's not any talk of any of the surrounding cities to raise sales or raise that property tax, which was a good message. So, and that's about it.
I've got the AAMPO TAC meeting. A lot of the same. They're encouraging us to get our projects, if we're going to get those in, start looking at getting those in. The Highway Safety Improvement Program, I'm waiting on a PowerPoint that they showed us there. But that's about it. The MPO, it was a little bit longer this time than it has been in the past couple months due to the fact that we did have a lot of discussion that we needed to take care of. So.
Thank you, Councilman Hicks. Anyone else? And, okay. Thank you, Councilman Gibbs. And then I guess the only other thing is like Mr. Frias said, the filing to run for Guadalupe or Green Valley Special SED. So I would encourage folks. Okay, thank you, Mark. Yep. Items for future agenda. I'd like, of course, we're going to talk about the ethics. And also, Peggy, I would like to maybe sometime in September, is that too late, Joel, for discussion on projects that we could submit to the TAC?
You're talking about when?
September?
Oh, September, no.
We're still good, so I'd like to
We're good.
get us start thinking about that. Any other items?
Yes. Mr. H, I don't know if this is really for the council agenda item, or it may even be suitable for a product update just by email. Trying to think how many meetings ago Ms. Miranda briefed us on the sales tax, the periodic sales tax report. Would be interesting to see. It was good for us. I think we were all pleasantly surprised. I don't know if that cycle of her getting the info from the county or the state has happened, but again, I don't know if we need to take up the time at the council meeting, or if it's just, here's, one of your famous memos out to us. And I would also like to know, if it's possible to know, the last time we couldn't figure out why, the numbers were up. It didn't seem like they should be. And Miss Anna got some cryptic note that there were two new businesses that had come in that weren't factored in for that same time last year, but she wasn't sure who they are. If that's one, known, and two, if it's known, it's releasable. Could we figure out who that is? I just out of morbid curiosity.
Let me send out a written communication, because in a couple of weeks, the EDC board meets, and Anna provides a sales tax report to the EDC, which can also be used by us at the council. And as far as the spike that we had in the sales tax, we know at least one of those two. I don't know if I can share that information publicly, but I might be able to do it with a private and confidential communication. And then, but lastly, we are doing well in our sales tax. We're still either hitting our mark or just above our mark. What you're going to hear during the budget presentations is, but we're down in inspection, building permits, municipal court, and some other, especially in interest income. In fact, I got a report. I was going over the investments reports today, and unfortunately, it looks like on our next set of not bonds, our next set of investments mature, we're probably looking at less than 0.4 of an interest rate. So we're trying to scramble to see if we can do better. Thank you.
All right, and the actual item would be, if we could, a topic that talks about funding, and I don't know if it comes from court fees. There's a fund that you had mentioned to me. I would like to look at illuminating crosswalks that are especially near schools and it would be for periods of darkness. And I've got one across from Jordan that I get squawked about a couple times every now and then, especially in the winter time frame where the school has not yet sent out. Kids are coming to school. The school's admin folk is not out at the crosswalk yet, and it's a period of darkness. And a way to, there's one option that's about $7,000 that it's signs that are illuminated, and it's not the $25,000, $30,000 in the street option. So one, maybe it's better, the crosswalks that are near schools, that would be the first.
Councilman Wolver, you're on a good path here, but we're getting a little far off.
Well, that's the topic I'm asking for, is the info to bring to us would be those crosswalks, and then two, we worry about the other non-school crosswalks later if we want to, put the focus on. I mean, safety should always be it, but if it's about kids, so that.
Crosswalks for the next agenda. Got it.
And then you got, Mrs. Lee's going to give us a brief in executive session. And then speaking of crosswalks, I'd like to know what's going on if GVC has put the lighting in down here for our businesses. Remember, they were supposed, this was a few months back, GVC, there was something going on. They were going to put some lights in for us in downtown Cibolo. They already did? Okay, I was just okay, so we're good. Okay, so then I'm good. Yep, I'm good on that one.
Okay. Any other items? Item M, back to you, Ms. Peggy, on the upcoming meetings and workshops.
All right. On the 17th, which is Monday, we have court in here. And this court is going to be our first virtual court. So all our courts now are going virtual. So the judge will be doing a virtual session. So will our prosecutor. So this is going to be the first time that this is going to happen. We've, just so the council will know, we have sent out letters to we've only heard back from one person, but we don't know how this is going to work. But people will have the opportunity to still walk in, but everyone has been given the opportunity to do a virtual meeting with the judge. So I wanted to let you know that, and that's going to be done on Monday for the first time. Again, we have our workshops scheduled for the 18th and 19th. They will be scheduled from 6:30 to 8:30. I will have some snacks here for everybody on those days. And that's everything else on the calendar is good. So, but I wanted to remind everyone on the workshops and on the court.
On the
Thank you.
court, Miss Peggy, he'll be here, but he'll be able to do it virtually? Is that?
Yes, he will
okay.
be here, so will the prosecutor be here, because there is an opportunity, not everybody has the capability of doing a Zoom meeting.
Right, that's
So
what I
we
was gonna
have to
get
be
at.
able to have them walk in. The way court has been happening is we still have, we don't have more than 10 people in the council chamber at any given time. So it is scheduled, and so is the Zoom. I mean, if you're on a Zoom meeting, the judge is only going to be hearing you. You're going to be in the waiting room. You know how Zoom meetings are. They'll be in the waiting room, and they're not going to hear what the judge is saying to another person. So it'll be interesting.
Thank you, Peggy. All right, with that, item number 10, executive session. Time is now 9:39. We will convene into executive session to talk about status of the lawsuit with Cindy Spencer versus City of Cibolo and Cibolo Parkway versus the City of Cibolo.
This update's gonna be real quick.